Neighbor says she saw my husband cheating. So my husband comes home late most of the time. He usually has many meetings. However, his schedule is flexible, so sometimes he'll come home earlier. A couple of days ago, I was out shopping, and when I came home at around 4, he was there. I didn't think anything of it, and just spent time with him. Yesterday in the evening, my neighbor and I were going for a walk around the neighborhood. While talking, she asked me if I knew. I was so confused, so when I pressed her further, she asked if I knew my husband was cheating on me. My heart quite literally sank at the thought of it, but I didn't believe her. She reassured me and said that being married to a man like him comes with infidelity, and that she has been through the same thing. Once the original shock is over, I'll come to terms with it. I was so confused because she still hadn't given me any proof of my husband cheating, and I got angry that she was just accusing him of things. She then told me that a couple of days ago, at around 11, that day that I went shopping, my husband brought a girl over to our home in his car, and a couple of hours later, the girl left in a different car. She said that from her view, the girl had a similar body type to me and looked around my age, but she had blonde hair. I was and am shocked. I couldn't continue the walk and I went home. My husband came home shortly after. I wish I was better at keeping a straight face, but I just couldn't. He repeatedly asked me what was wrong, but I didn't tell him. He said that he'll get it out of me eventually. The neighbor has always been so sweet to me, but this morning after telling my best friends about it, they believe that my neighbor is lying. We have 2 security cameras that show the driveway of our house. The only problem is that the app is on my husband's phone. He's always extremely transparent. I can go on his phone at any time. I don't check through it, I just search things up if my phone is dead and stuff like that. But if he is cheating, he probably wouldn't let me go on his phone. My husband is huge on loyalty, and he is really possessive over me, so I don't understand how he could be cheating on me. When we're out, he never looks at other women. He isn't even friendly to waitresses or anyone like that. He's always said that I'm his exact type, and I have dark hair. He has always been all over me, but I'm not going to be one of those delusional wives. Do you think he's cheating? If he is, I will leave him no questions asked. Please give me your honest opinions and advice. I am 22 female, and my husband is 34 male. The neighbor is 35 female. And now in the comments, would your neighbor have any motivation to lie and break up your marriage? Why do the security cameras only go to your husband's phone? We had a couple of security cameras and they're linked to both of our phones. And at least with our security cameras, the app only keeps 3 hours of recordings. If it's past that, it disappears. And OP replies, I don't think so. She sometimes asks weird questions about our relationship, but I think she is just trying to bond with me in a way. We're pretty new to the neighborhood. I know it sounds stupid, I never really thought to download the security camera app. I'm not sure if it'll have the recording of a couple of days ago, but I still think I should try looking. You can Google the type of camera you have and see what the storage time is before you ask your husband to see them. And OP replies, thank you. You can tell him the neighbor saw a suspicious car at your house, don't make it about cheating, so you want to review the footage. If he has any resistance, I think it's time to keep a close eye on him. Check first. Ask your husband after. If he is actually cheating and you ask him first, he will delete every evidence that there is. Also, you should have access to the security camera as well, and him being possessive over you isn't a sign of him not cheating. It's actually a bit of a red flag. I'm not saying believe her immediately, but if there is a chance that he is cheating, you should check first. People can cheat while holding your hand, and you can't even tell. Hopefully, your neighbor is wrong. And OP replies, thank you for this, and I'm leaning more towards trusting my husband, but I don't want to be delusional whatsoever. Hopefully she is. Look first. If he is, he will delete and deny. You want to trust him, but if your gut is telling you different, you have your answers. You can have the most amazing husband, but can be blindsided. Trust me on this. Look first, don't ask him. And now on to the update. My neighbor lied. I have no idea why. Update 1. He just read the message and responded with the login info. Time to see. Update 2. 30 minutes later. I can't describe how relieved I am. I'm still crying for some reason. I downloaded the app and logged in. Rightfully so, most of you said that the footage would probably be deleted for that day. However, it was still there, because there was nothing to hide. At around 11:06 AM on July 7th, you see my husband pull into our driveway. He exits the vehicle alone. There was no blonde. The only other car that comes to our house is mine at 3:50 PM. I want to update you guys on what happens with the neighbor, but I think I'm going to delete this account. I am so disgusted. I don't know why she would lie to me like that. I'm disappointed in myself for doubting my husband, and I hope he doesn't get angry with me for not trusting him. Update 3, 4 hours later. Most people won't read this, but I just want to put it here. My husband has been worried since last evening, since that was when I started ignoring him, and he said that he will get it out of me eventually. Today, he has called and texted me numerous times between his meetings to check in on me, but I ignored everything. When I randomly asked for the login, I guess he got even more worried. An hour and a half ago, he just decided to say F it and come home, even though he still had work to do. I was so scared that he would be mad. When he came home, he was visibly angry and worried. I just told him the truth. I know I wasn't supposed to. Many people said to lie about it, but I just couldn't. I then apologized for not trusting him. He wasn't even angry anymore. He just looked hurt and sad. He said that he could never be angry with me for that, and he will deal with the neighbor. Thinking about the neighbor seemed to make him really angry though. He said that I should eat something, but I told him that I didn't feel like it. He then asked me if I had slept at all last night, and I said no. So even though it's 7:30 PM, I'm in his arms and in bed. I'm finally going to sleep soon. I just wanted to update since a couple of people thought that he would leave me. TLDR, happy ending. I'm not sure what will happen with the neighbor though. And now in the comments. With your neighbor's comments and behavior and the ages of everyone involved, I think your neighbor might be into your husband. If she's blonde, I'm positive. Either way, please get some distance from that crazy. And OP replies, she is a blonde, but the thing is, her body is nothing like mine. Do you still think she was still talking about herself? In a way, since my husband didn't actually cheat. She was 100% projecting this fake woman as herself. Probably to seem more attractive too, because she likes your husband. This is so vile. I hope you confront her. It's a scary thought that the one that we love would betray us. I'm glad the right turnout happened. I'm glad that it's a toxic stranger to remove from your life. That's an easier cancer to cut out. Maybe try to use this as a lesson that maybe you just need more general communication in your marriage. I don't mean that in a bad way. My wife and I decided that together, and not because we were fighting. We started talking more and more, and our relationship grows and strengthens daily. Best of luck to you, OP. Hang in there. And OP replies, you're right. Thank you. I'm relieved for you, OP. I suspected as much because it sounded like she already believed your husband was a cheater, and the facts didn't matter to her until you pressed her on her beliefs. I probably don't have to tell you this, but you should cut contact with her. She's too interested in your relationship, and it's very, very weird that she knew enough details about your lives to be able to come up with this lie in the first place. She knew that you weren't home that day, and she knew roughly when your husband got home. My guess? She's probably the resident pot stirrer and latched onto you because you're a newcomer and everyone else already knows what she's like. And OP replies, I know. This, added on to the questions about how often we have sex and if he gives me affection after, is so creepy. I definitely won't confront or do anything unless he's there, because if he is, then she won't be able to hurt me at all. I really don't want to confront her. I just wish I could avoid. I would honestly never talk to her again. That's not really something you can walk back. And let me guess, she doesn't have many friends around the neighborhood? And OP replies, I don't really know. She actually said to me that most of the women in this neighborhood have experienced the cheating, which means she must be somewhat close to them. I just want to move areas because I never want to see her again, but I obviously understand that's not really possible. And yeah, I won't talk to her again. Or she's the weirdo neighbor that has broken up multiple marriages by lying to the wives. What a terrible neighbor. I believe it though. My mum had a friend who took great delight in telling my mother that my dad has been seen multiple times with a blonde in the passenger seat of his car by her. She even noted the times and places that she had been behind him in her car. Small town. It was our family golden retriever. He liked to sit up in the front passenger seat like a human. Am I the asshole for not waking my partner up and causing him to miss a family trip? Me and my partner have 5 daughters. They are 7, 6, 4, 3, and 5 months old. For a long time, there has been an issue with him getting up to help with the kids in the morning. He thinks that he should be able to sleep in on his days off work, while I think that he should get up when the kids and I do, and we should at least be altering who lies in a bit. We've been seeing a therapist who has mentioned that he should be helping more in the mornings. Recently, we had a family trip planned to the zoo with both of our parents. Previously, when we've gone out for the day, I've needed to shake my partner awake several times, and he lies in bed whilst I get the kids ready. He finally gets up 5 minutes before we leave as I shout at him that I'm getting in the car. I've mentioned to him that this is very frustrating as it's a lot of work getting the kids ready to go out, and it's not fair to leave it up to me while he lies in bed. He'd apologize and promise that the next time he'd get up and help. The night before the trip, I told him that I'd need him to be awake at 6:30 a.m. so we could get everyone ready to leave by 8 a.m. He said that he'd set an alarm and we went to bed. My alarm went off at 6:30 and I got up while my partner kept sleeping. I decided I wasn't going to wake him this time and continued getting the kids ready. At 8 a.m., he was still sleeping, so I loaded the kids in the car and we set off. We arrived at the zoo at 9:30 a.m. and his family asked where he was. I mentioned he was still in bed and chose not to come. At 10:15, I got a phone call from him asking where everyone was. I said we went to the zoo as planned and I waited for him to get up, but he never did. He got really mad and told me that I should have woken him up like I always do, and I caused him to miss the trip. He then called his mum and complained to her, who yelled at me in the middle of the zoo that I was being unfair and I should have given a shake to let him know that he needed to get up and that I was about to leave. My mother jumped in and said that it wasn't my responsibility to get him out of bed and he needed to take responsibility for himself. A few more words were exchanged and his family stalked off for the rest of the trip. I had a blast with my kids, parents, sister, and my nephews. When we got home, my partner started on me again about how I should have woken him up. So am I the asshole for not waking him up and going without him? A few things have come up that I want to clarify. He wasn't always like this. When the oldest 2 were little, he was always up with them. He even would get up before anyone else to cook breakfast before going off to work. We had to move in with his parents at one point, and that's where things started to change. His family is incredibly misogynistic. Dad works and then comes home, watches TV and drinks beer, while his mum does everything else, including getting him up for work, etc. These beliefs seem to have rubbed off on him, and his mum is very quick to tell him something is the woman's job. He is seeing a therapist independently who has suggested some form of depression. He's generally pretty good otherwise. He will help with dinner, cleaning, putting the kids to bed, etc. He is not entirely useless. Getting out of bed in the morning is a long-standing issue though. And he has a vasectomy after baby number 4, which turned out to be incomplete. I had a hysterectomy. Those few extra things that OP wanted to clarify make a lot of sense as to why the parents were so on his side for this one. We can just immediately put those parents in the asshole basket. And I think we can fairly assume from this extra information that the husband should be fairly in the asshole basket himself. He has 5 kids. There is no excuse for this behavior. You should be up at the same time or earlier than your partner because that is a monumental effort to be looking after that many. There are needs that need to be met as a team. And OP and Tim discussed this beforehand. He agreed to get up at 6:30 so everyone could leave by 8. He didn't hold his end of the deal, so he gets cut out of it. That's just the consequences of his actions. I'm gonna go with not the asshole for this one. He is the asshole, his parents are assholes, and kids are too young to pass a judgment on. So yeah. Now in the comments, not the asshole. I taught my daughter that she was responsible for getting herself up for high school, and if she missed the bus, I wasn't going to drive her. She never missed the bus. Heh, my parents taught me a similar lesson, only I did miss the bus. Once. Lol, truth be told, I would have driven her to school at least the first time because I'm an extremely soft touch, but thankfully, she took me seriously. My mum did that to me, and one time my alarm didn't go off right. I ended up bumming a ride to school with a strange man because I was terrified of being late. Therein lies the problem with these threats of punitive measures. My dad once told me, I was 13, that if I became a pregnant teenager like the neighbor's daughter, I'd be kicked out. My mum went nuts at him and said, "Do you want your daughter dying on a backstreet abortionist's table?" etc. I can still remember the deer in the headlights look on his face. Not the asshole. 1. Your husband takes you for granted. He has no intention of helping you and knows that you always will take care of the kids. He seems to think parenting has a day off when it never really does, and he has to share responsibility. 2. He is clearly encouraged by his mother. Her yelling at you instead of him shows me she is the type to excuse his behavior and let her poor son rest and leave it to the wife. Be firm with him, do not apologize, and make sure you set rules in the future where either you both wake up or take turns, or else him missing out will continue in the future and you're done waking him up for his kids. Also, make clear that he is not to involve his mother in your relationship. If she starts in, warn her not to involve herself in matters that do not concern her. Lol, a grown man running to mum because his wife didn't wake him up? Effing unbelievable. Not the arsehole. The only way to stop enabling someone is to stop. You did, and I hope you keep it up. And OP replies, "This is what the therapist said too. I don't plan on backing down." And now on to the update. After posting this, I received messages expressing concern and advice, so I thought that I'd update about how things turned out. The morning after this incident, my partner got out of bed when the kids did and took the older girls out for breakfast. Later, I asked him if he'd be willing to read the thread, and he agreed. He was very subdued afterwards and didn't say much, except for agreeing that he was an asshole. The next day, he took off work and saw his GP, started on antidepressants, and we had a long talk. He was ashamed by how he was acting and to see strangers comparing him to children. He cried when he realized how much he was letting everyone down, especially his daughters who will grow up thinking this is normal behavior. He's confirmed that this all started when we lived with his parents a few years back. He left home at 17 to get away from his mother, and she told him that he would fail as men need a woman to look after them. He felt like a failure, so it was easy for his mother to feed him other ideas, and she would also manipulate things that I did to look like he was incompetent as a person. For example, I'd tell him to relax and I'd handle the dishes, and his mother twisted it into me thinking he was incompetent, so he should just stop helping at all. He'd wake up feeling useless, and she managed to convince him that he was unhappy because I wasn't taking care of him the way a wife should. He decided to go no contact with her, which didn't go well. She cried and told him that he was a horrible son for abandoning his mother, and that I was trying to control him by forcing him to do it. He blocked her, but she would just use different numbers to continue calling him. After a week or so, he ended up changing his number, and we haven't heard from his family since. He brought up the fact that he was unhappy at work as it wasn't stimulating enough, but he felt like he couldn't leave. I offered to pick up some part-time work, but he said no. He talked to his boss and took some time off and eventually quit. He spoke to my dad, who used some connections and got him a good job at his company. The new job is a primarily work-from-home position, so he's able to help with the girls more and has more free time. He's able to take the girls to school and watch them play while he works, which they all enjoy. Before he started the new job, he booked a trip for us to go to the snow for a week. We had a blast, and it was lovely to see him relaxed and happy and enjoying our girls and life. He promised to be more honest about how he's feeling, and our relationship has improved immensely. Thank you for everyone who gave judgment and advice. As he says, it really helped him see things more clearly, especially the toxic relationship with his mother. And now in the comments, he sounds like a keeper. He messed up, realized it, made concrete steps to make it better. If this isn't the best Am I the Arsehole update, I don't know what is. I feel like there's been some better updates than this, but this is just a positive one. Something pickle jar in the fridge that we never got a conclusion for, goddammit. This forum breaks my heart on a daily basis, so seeing something truly good and healthy unfold from the advice given here has rekindled my faith in humanity. Thank you for sharing this update, and thank you to everyone in this community. I wanted to second that. I am genuinely so glad to see something good and healthy come out of this. To OP, thank you for the update. I know I'm just a random stranger on the internet, but please take my hugs. I am proud of both of you and your hubby for putting in the hard work and doing the needful, making positive changes, and bettering your lives for yourselves and your kiddos. And OP replies, sometimes strangers give the best perspectives because they are usually neutral. Some people gave very in-depth responses and put into words what he was feeling. He just didn't realize it. That's awesome to hear, and it's great that he started an antidepressant. I'd also encourage him to engage in actual mental health treatment as well. His mother's words have deeply affected him in ways that he hasn't acknowledged yet. Communication in y'all's relationships is good and obviously beneficial to both of your mental health, but no substitute for professional guidance. Best of luck to you. And OP replies, he is seeing a therapist and will continue to do so long term. His mother really messed him up, and he acknowledges that that will take a long time to undo. He sees that his parents and even his sister are unhappy, and he doesn't want to continue that trend. What is wrong with the mother-in-law? Why would you ever do that to your son? Obviously, I'm just projecting things on random internet strangers, but I'm gonna go with mother-in-law has a huge well of bitterness from decades of feeling stuck taking care of her useless husband, can't admit that all the stuff she internalized about a woman's role and men being useless is wrong, because that would require accepting that her decades of frustration were unnecessary and is taking it out on her son instead. Absolutely. Most misogynists I've met are men, but the most virulent misogynists I've met are women. I really think that they're just trying to justify their unfulfilling lives to themselves. And our next post is titled, Am I the Arsehole for telling my dad the real reason why I don't want to go on vacation with him and his family and potentially ruining his marriage? I am a 17-year-old male. When I was around 9, my dad, 39 male, started seeing a friend of my mom's, cheated on my mom, they married, and they now have 3 kids together. My dad asked for custody. He was granted to have me on weekends, he seemed happy to have me, and always tried to include me in everything, but it was kind of weird and frustrating. He even tried to make me call his wife Mom, and went for full custody several times. Since being with his wife and making me accept his new family was more important than actually spending time with me alone, I stopped going to his house when I was 14 and tried to fight for full custody after my mom started dating my stepdad, a nice guy. But I told him to stop. The other reason why I stopped going, I never told my dad this one, is because his wife was so hostile towards me. My dad used to pay attention to me when I was there, so I think she didn't like it that way. And one day told me behind my dad's back that I was an obstacle to my dad's happiness, that I should just stay with my mom full time. Their anniversary was 5 days ago. I didn't want to go, but he called my mom to threaten that if I didn't go, he would go to court. Toxic much? He took his 4 kids, including me, his wife, his parents, and his parents-in-law to celebrate at a nice restaurant. Once there, he said that he had 6 tickets for vacations, and I didn't say anything, but then he looked at me and said, "One is for you." I said thanks, but I'm not going. He seemed angry and said, "Okay, I had enough. Why don't you want to go?" And I replied, "Just because." I said that, but then he asked the same question 5 more times, and so on the 6th time I said, "Because I hate your wife." And then he started asking why over and over again, so I ended up telling him the mean things that she said to me. He was seemingly uncomfortable, but told us to finish our meal. No one talked for the rest of the night, and after we finished, I asked my stepdad to pick me up. I haven't spoken to my dad since. He just sent me a message asking if I changed my mind about the trip, but I said no. My cousin told me that my dad is staying at my grandparents' now. His wife texted me yesterday calling me a brat and asking if I was happy for potentially destroying my half-siblings' home life. but I just ignored her. My cousin says that the kids are hurt and crying because my dad isn't at home, and she says that I should have just said other things or agreed and then tell him later that I wasn't going. OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the asshole. I told my dad on his anniversary, in front of other people, the real reason why I don't want to go on vacations with him/his family, which probably caused problems. If you want my opinion, I think the more you wrote about this dad, the less my opinion became of him. Or I guess the worse my opinion became. Though I didn't expect him to go and stay at the grandparents' house now and completely ignore everyone else. If this is him having an epiphany and coming back to be a better person and maybe cutting that wife off, I don't know. The situation could be somewhat salvaged, but for now, I don't like your dad and I don't like his partner. They seem very toxic together. I'm gonna say you're not the asshole for your actions in this story. And now in the comments, not the asshole. Their feelings are not your responsibility. You don't like his wife, she's rude, and he has spent this whole time trying to force you into a role that you don't want to make him happy. Your dad is an asshole, his wife is an asshole, and so is anyone arguing against you. Not the asshole. Your dad and his wife are though. That woman had no issue breaking up her friend's family, but expects you to be sympathetic about her own actions causing a rift in her marriage? She's delusional, and your cousin is way out of touch. Not the asshole. Your dad trying to force you into his new family against your wishes is awful. Your stepmom projecting onto you was way worse. She ruined your family along with your father, and she needs to make it your fault because she knows that you don't like her. That's the only reason she said it. That, and she's never wanted you as a part of her stolen family. I'm very glad you have a good head on your shoulders though. You did nothing wrong here but answer his relentless questions. Stepmom should have kept her nasty-ass comments to herself if she wanted to keep up the facade of a happy family. Not the asshole, L cousin to be honest. Thank you, Mr. Roombastic, for the amazing commentary. And now onto the update. Well, since a lot of you guys have been messaging me, asking about my situation, and I'm finally done with my finals, which means that I have time, here is an update. I didn't show my father the mean messages she sent me, as many of you had suggested, because I don't want this woman going around saying that I destroyed her life and talking all of her crap. So I didn't really do it, and I won't. That's on her. My dad has been so apologetic, and a few days after I posted on here for the first time, he picked me up to hang out, just the two of us. He apologized, and even cried for not realizing before what the issue was. He said that it was never his intention to make me feel that way. He promised that he would never let her get between us again. He begged me not to hate him. I don't know where he got that from, as I love him, because he doesn't want me to cut him off since he wants to be there for my wedding and also as a grandpa to my kids. And he then got a little emotional saying how much he loves me, etc., and he basically promised to be a better father. He asked if I changed my mind about the trip, and I said yes, I'll go. It'll be just me, my dad, and his kids. It'll be in August, and I know that she is furious for being excluded, but hasn't texted me or anything. So that's it. My dad and I talk more often, and we also hang out more. I've been to his house a couple of times, just for a few hours, but his wife and I just ignore each other. So that's it, I guess. I'm going to go on the trip with my dad and half-siblings. Someone asked me about the relationship that I have with the boys. Well, we get along, thus we can't really do a lot of things together since we have different interests. They are 8, 7, 5, all male. But I love them, and I know that they love their big brother. They say it too. And now in the comments, I love how she's pissed that he ruined his half-sibling's home life, but she helped ruin his years ago, so she doesn't have room to talk. One thing I've seen about homewreckers and cheaters is that they really can't take what they dish out for others. If they start an affair and ruin a family, it was fate, and they felt a pull so strong that they just had to engage in infidelity, but can't even handle the slightest discomfort or hurt. Starting an affair with her own friend's husband and ruining his family was fine, but just revealing what she said is destroying her family. They are very insecure people. Especially in this case, the woman was OP's mother's ex-friend. I wonder how long she had patterns of being a trashy person that the mother ignored. This type of hostility and selfish behavior doesn't just suddenly occur. I think one reason they're so insecure is because they know that if the person cheated with them, they could easily cheat on them. Normally, yes, that's a common insecurity of cheaters. But in this case, the wife wanted to erase her husband's former marriage, child included. OP's father would have happily pretended the ex-wife never existed. He even tried to make OP call his wife mom, but he wouldn't let go of his kid. That's as admirable as it comes for a cheater. Maybe her resentment stems from OP not wanting to play mummy with her, but I'm unsure if that's just as bad or worse. Stepmom is such an asshole. If you can't handle kids from a previous marriage and feel threatened, you should not get married. I wonder if dad will leave his current wife over this. If you can't handle kids from a previous marriage, you definitely shouldn't cheat with a married father. Plenty of men disappear from children's lives after they divorce the children's mothers. Stepmom might have expected that. Boy, that sounds like dad/husband material to me. That's my story. I saw my dad for a few weekends after my mother and him divorced, and then he moved out of state. Tried reconnecting with him as an adult, he tried to screw my girlfriend, the end. Honestly, I think dad was just as much to blame as his wife for his bad relationship with OP. Trying to get full custody because OP's mum had started dating again and trying to make OP call his wife mum were such overbearing actions. It suggests a desire to rug sweep his cheating. His wife is just as easy scapegoated so that OP doesn't have to think about how problematic the dad is. He even threatened to take OP's mum to court if he didn't come to the damned anniversary dinner. That threat was a total dick move, designed specifically to manipulate OP. No lawyer or judge is going to take you seriously about a 17-year-old not going to dinner, or even about them refusing to see you for visitation. I'm leaving my husband because I found out that he has been making fun of me behind my back to his ex. So my husband, male 45, and I, female 36, met about 6 years ago. We've been married for 1 year. When we met, I was very fit and athletic. I started gaining weight, however, after suffering 2 miscarriages and the loss of my mother to cancer. I was very depressed and barely got out of bed, if not to go to work. I stopped exercising and instead started eating junk food. I gained 40 pounds in 2 years, 2019 to 2020. During this time, my husband, then fiancé, was very supportive and loving. I felt guilty, and I tried to give him an out several times, but instead, he proposed and we got married last summer. Since our marriage, I've been feeling much better, and it showed. I have lost around 20 pounds so far, and I gained back my muscles and abs. He was so happy to see me feeling better. On his computer, however, it was a totally different story. He was talking, almost during our entire relationship, to his ex-wife about me. His ex-wife, female 46, left him about 7 to 8 years ago for her colleague. The relationship didn't work out, however, and she tried to get back together with my husband. He had already met me, but they stayed friends, mostly via chat, texting, since she lives 12 hours away. My husband was complaining about everything about me, my job, my depression, my cooking, but mostly about my weight. He was telling her how disgusting I was to him, how he even found it hard to share the same bed since I snored like a dog. He sent her pictures of me while sleeping, sometimes in underwear with comments about my belly, double chin, back boobs, etc. She found these pictures extremely amusing, and she came up with the name White Whale. They both found it hilarious, and now this is what they referred to me as. They don't flirt exactly, or talk about being together or starting an affair, but they do say that they miss each other, and they reminisce about the time that they were married. She's more flirtatious, and he really enjoys it. Whatever he's telling her isn't what I have experienced with him. I don't disgust him, and he tells me that he loves me all the time. We have great and passionate sex, and the way he touches and makes love to me is so great. Like, he must be a really good actor if he was in reality disgusted by me. And he hates the few times we have to sleep apart. He's lying, and I don't know why he's doing it. He's lying to one of us, and I'm not sure if I want to know who he's lying to and why. I decided to get out of this marriage and leave this behind me. Right now, I'm acting like everything is normal, but I've started looking at a new job in another city and a place to rent. I also started with birth control pills in case something happens between us, and I've talked to a lawyer to prepare the divorce and start the process once I'm gone. One thing I'm not going to do is fall back into depression and weight gain. I will not allow it. What a waste of love he has been. Edit, I can't believe I need to explain this about the birth control pills. Very simple explanation. Up until I went through his messenger, I loved and trusted this guy. We had a great sex life and we were trying to conceive. When I read what he had written and the way that he took pictures of me sleeping, something happened inside of me like, I don't know this person in front of me anymore. I can't read his face and I don't trust him. I don't know how long I'm going to need to stay under the same roof as him. I don't know what his reaction would be if I refused him under a long period of time with no real excuse. I don't know what else he's capable of besides taking pictures of sleeping people. I don't know if I, in a moment of weakness, succumb to lust, or if he for a moment could fool me that he actually loved me. For all these reasons, and many darker scenarios I've played in my head, I'm taking extra precautions. Anyone with an IQ of a chicken, or self-awareness of a dead chicken, could understand that, or so I hope. Thank you everyone for the support. I will update you when I know more about where I'm headed. I mean, we all get the ick sometimes, don't we? But that is just, wow. This is just evil, isn't it? This just feels terrible to read. I admire OP for being so strong and so decisive in their actions for this. It's definitely the right thing to do. It's what you need to do in these situations. Be vigilant, have your guard up, and escape this abusive situation as fast as possible and as safely as possible. And I'm also in agreement with them here that you cannot trust him because damn, those are two completely polar opposite personalities. Scary stuff. And now in the comments, I'm proud of you for leaving. Stick to your plan and be done with him. I can't even fathom the gut-punching reading White Whale was. Definitely make sure to screenshot and print out the conversations for when you make your exit. Block him, block his family if need be, because you never know what kind of crazy story he could make up, and most importantly, take care of yourself. We are rooting for you. And OP replies, it was this pic of me with my belly hanging out while sleeping on my side that earned me the nickname White Whale. Sharing a photo of someone who you did not get permission for, let alone taking the photo, is a huge violation. I'm sorry he's such an ass. I applaud your resolve and plans. He doesn't deserve you. Well, at least he's giving you a quick way to lose some dead weight. What an effing asshole. You will be much better off without him. Right? She's about to excise a 160-pound plus malignant tumor. That's living well all by itself. I don't know why, but it never ceases to amaze me how quietly cruel spouses can be behind the other's back. Good luck, OP. You are smart and deserve a much better life. Go get it. I'm so happy that you have the fight in you. He needs to go play his weird messed up games with his wretched ex. I'm not, and I will never be that thin. I knew that I was with one of the good ones when I was over at my boyfriend's, and he thought that I was asleep, but I got up to use the bathroom and overheard him talking to his friends online while they were playing Halo in his living room, and he said something along the lines of, "No, she's not that thin at all, actually. Why?" And I think to myself, oh, here we go, when he straightens up and goes, "What? No, actually, it's great. She's so great to cuddle with. She's always super warm and I'm always freezing. And when we go out, she actually wants to eat real food. Plus her boobs, man. They're huge. Skinny girls don't get boobs like that. I know they're real." At that point, I walked over and gave him a kiss, and he was super embarrassed that I'd overheard him. Someone else says, I would suggest printing out the emails, and then leave them on the kitchen counter with your house keys and wedding band when you leave. Leave while he's not there. If that's how he wants to behave, let him see that you left him because of it. And OP replies, I will probably do that, yeah. I don't want to confront him now while I'm still living with him, but once I'm out, it's probably the easiest way to explain why. Print his conversations and hand it to him. And now, onto the update. I have now left my husband and served him with the papers. White whale out. Hi again. I don't know how to make an update, but my original post is in my profile. But I'm feeling happy. So happy for the first time in weeks, and I wanted to share with you since many of you supported me and requested an update. I thought that it would be the decent thing to do. So here goes nothing. I didn't pry or spy on my husband. I used his MacBook to do some work, and he had forgotten to log out from Facebook and Messenger. He has never given me any reason to spy on him. After I found out, however, I would occasionally check his phone, maybe hoping that it was all a bad joke. He continued complaining anyhow, and now he was telling her that I was being distant and cold in manner, and that he was tired of me. He even lied and told her that I was gaining even more weight, even though I'm not. He told her that we weren't having sex. I avoided him because he couldn't find it under the rolls of fat, a joke that she highly appreciated. I didn't spy after that. I got the confirmation I needed. In the meantime, he acted the worried husband with me, concerned about me and asking if I was going through a new depression. He told me he loved me and that he was there for me. He did everything like the previous times that I had dips. Called from work, came home with takeouts from my favorite restaurants, did all the cleaning and washing around the house, baked fresh breads in the mornings, flowers and chocolates, and asked me if I wanted to go for nighttime drives and walks. He used to take me for a drive the nights that I was feeling very down and depressed. Like, how can anyone be so two-faced? I have my big sister who lives in another city. I told her that I was leaving my husband and that I was looking for jobs in her city. My sister is married, and she lives with her husband and daughter in a big house. She offered me one of her spare bedrooms. I got a few job interviews, and one of them turned into an offer. It's not exactly my field of work, and it came with a significant decrease in salary. But I thought about it, and it's a good start until something more suitable comes up. I didn't want to prolong my stay with him any longer, and a decrease in income is a good sacrifice. Plus, I'm going to have lower rent, and I'm selling my car since the new job is in walking distance from my sister's house. No more worry about the crazy gas prices. My new job starts on October 1st. I'm working my notice period from my computer. The 2 month between jobs, I'm just gonna have fun and work on myself. I took my name off the lease, but I'm going to pay 2 more months. I left him last Sunday. The night before, I prepared a very nice dinner and I screwed his brains out all night. It felt so good to hear him whispering how much he loved me and how lucky he was to have me. In the morning, I left the divorce papers and my attorney's number in the kitchen. When I got to my sister, I finally could tell her and the rest of my family about everything. I showed them all the conversations and even the pictures that he'd taken of me. They are all pissed with him. He has been calling me and texting me obsessively, but he doesn't know where I live now. He went to my parents, but they just shunned him at the door and advised him to let me go. Maybe he knows now because he's been asking to explain and apologize, etc. I don't care. All I've texted back is that if he wants to convey a message, he could do it through my lawyer. Edit, my parents were divorced and both remarried. Mum passed away almost 3 years ago. He went to Dad's house looking for me. Dad lives there with my stepmom and 2 of my sisters. And now in the comments, this is the update that I'm waiting for. I feel glad for you. And OP replies, thank you. It feels like a big weight is lifted off my chest when I finally left our apartment. Best update I've read in a while. Such a satisfying conclusion to an otherwise horrific situation. Imagine being such a loser that you feel the need to validate your cheating ex-wife by saying despicable things about your current not cheating wife. Dude's a chump. You're better off, OP, and I'm rooting for you. Congrats on putting yourself first, having self-respect, and ending things when appropriate. I wish more people were like you, although if they were, we'd have fewer entertaining stories to read on this site. Info. Did you ever tell him why? And will you? And OP replies, I don't know. He will know for sure if he hasn't already found out because I've told my family what he did and someone will probably tell him. But I have no plans on telling him myself or hearing his reasons. I don't know if I'm strong enough to face it. You're very strong to do what you have done, and with such grace. Good luck in the start of what comes next. This internet stranger thinks you're amazing. What a moron. X leaves him for someone else and he throws what he has now away to make the ex giggle. Thankfully, OP got on the computer that day and found out what was really going on. Yup, destroying the new relationship is what brings joy to malicious, abusive exes. What a stupid clown. I hope his now ex-wife finds someone who treats her right. And you know that he told his previous ex-wife and she was like, "Aw, damn, well this has been fun, bye." And that's the horrible thing about this. OP is probably going to find it almost impossible to trust anyone new. People who love endlessly despite all the hurt are the reason there is light. Do not let anyone try to diminish how big your heart is. It's important that you continue to love. This would absolutely destroy me in every conceivable way if my husband did this. God, imagine what he would say if she did get pregnant. Our next post is titled, "My fiancé almost died in a car accident. That's when my mother-in-law told me he cheated on me with an ex. Now he's recovering well. I feel so guilty for wanting to end it. I feel like a horrible person. We're supposed to get married on August 20th in a small ceremony. I, female 33, have been with my fiancé, male 34, for 6 years, engaged for 1. The best years of my life. He's brilliant in every way, or so I thought. The accident happened 6 weeks ago. A drunk driver hit my fiancé's car. I spent the worst night of my life in the hospital waiting for answers from the doctors, and he went through hours and hours of surgery. His parents and brothers were also there waiting. I've always loved his family, and they me. His mum is, or was, one of my favorite people, and we got along very well. She was happy to have me as her first daughter-in-law. She's very religious, and when my fiancé was hovering between life and death, she was worried about his sins. So she told me that he cheated on me about 2 months ago with an ex that he bumped into. She explained that it was because of the wedding and the stress of planning it. Apparently, I've been both stressed out and stressing him out. He had a weak moment. It was a one-time thing, and he regretted it so much. He asked his parents for advice on what to do, and they told him not to say anything. As long as he's remorseful, and as long as it was me that he wanted, he should forget about what he did and move on. His whole family knew. After the hospital, he moved back to his parents' house because we live in a flat without lifts. I visit him every day. I haven't told him that I know, and his family is acting like nothing has changed. They are very happy that he's doing better, and understandably so, and my presence by his side is very helpful according to him and his family. Now both fiancé and his parents are talking about us being able to get married on the day we said, after all. I feel awful because I don't want that. Our relationship was over the moment I found out about the cheating. I stayed because I loved, and still do, him, and I wanted him to feel better. I couldn't break his heart while he's recovering. I also thought the wedding was postponed, and that we would have more time for him to fully recover, and be strong and independent again, so I could leave with clear conscience. I tried to speak to his mum today, but she just started hyperventilating and kept telling me not to do this. She made a mistake by telling me that I shouldn't take advantage of what she said in desperation to punish him and kill his spirit. He's still recovering and he needs me. I've been thinking since my talk with his mum about everything, and I'm so angry at him. I'm ashamed that even when I was worried about his life, I was very angry and resentful. We were supposed to have our wedding in this beautiful manor house that he found that's all-inclusive, with our most important people. My best friend is a DJ, and my parents paid for the whole thing, even though they are much poorer. So I don't know where the stress has come from. We fixed everything in a week. I am so angry, and I've kept bottling it up since the accident. I'm afraid I'm going to explode soon. I completely understand where you're coming from here, OP. That doesn't change my opinion of the situation, where I think you need to get your ass the hell away from him and his family. He's a good man. He's a very loving man. He only cheated on you once in a moment of weakness and then regretted it and then buried it completely and never was going to tell you. And also our whole family is in on it and we were never going to tell you either. But I told you in a moment of weakness. No. Stop with the mental gymnastics. Stop right there. Look at me, I've got a basket right here. It's the basket of assholes. Every single one of you get inside. What a terrible, enabling family to want to marry into. Thank God she gave you that out. I don't even want to imagine what would happen in the future if you gave them this inch. How many miles they would take from you. That's never ever going to be worth it. Thank God she did this for you. And now in the comments, quote, "So I don't even know where the stress has come from." That's because there was no stress. It was just a lame excuse he gave to his parents, and they bought it hook, line, and sinker, and are now making you out to be the bad guy. They are a manipulative bunch, and you will be well rid of them. I was thinking that. The mum literally thought her son was going to die with the cheating on his conscience, so she told OP, probably hoping OP would be so worried that she would just forgive him. I really think her motivation was religious, like the guy was gonna die, get to the pearly gates, and be denied entry because of the cheating. But if mum could convince the girlfriend to forgive him, then St. Peter couldn't have much else to say, right? I really think mum was trying to do his final confession for him, so he would have a squeaky clean soul when he reached heaven. Ah, the age-old ask for forgiveness, not permission. Right. If her motivation was religious, then the mum telling the fiancé has absolutely no effect at all. Me telling you about someone else's sin is merely gossip. One can't ask for absolution for another. The sinner has to request absolution from a priest, and the priest give it. Think last rites in this case. The mum even requesting it from a priest would do nothing. The son would have to tell the priest himself, then let's get to the fiancé not being capable of giving absolution anyway. The entire motivation on the part of the mum is complete BS. This was the mum really feeling guilty for her part in this secret, and under the stress of watching her son about to die, confessing her own guilty conscience to the fiancé. Nothing more. Now with her son alive and recovering, she doesn't want him to know that she's blown up his impending marriage. And OP replies, "She wanted me to forgive him in case he passed on. She probably felt extremely guilty for keeping it a secret because you were showing how much you loved him when his life was in jeopardy. I'm glad you're a strong person and you know your worth. Even if the situation overall was horrible, it's better to know now what type of people you were about to commit yourself to." No. She was just worried about him going to hell, so she wanted her to forgive him. Lamau? Well, at least you found out how he handles stress ahead of time. I read this expecting to see you ask him and find out that it was a lie. And OP says, "I know, right? Tell your parents what's going on right away so they can cancel the venues and get refunds on as much money as possible. You should also tell them so that they can support you when the in-laws pressure you to just forget and get married." His mum's pretty damn selfish as well, making it all about her with that hyperventilating BS. Oh please, they all betrayed you. None of them have your back. Not him, not his dad, and especially not his mum. They all decided that it was best for him to lie to you and didn't think it mattered to give you the chance and decide for yourself. What pieces of scum these people are. An accident doesn't change that. You were far too kind. I'd never walk back into that house again. Not into a house full of people who would lie and scheme behind my back. None of them love you. And now, onto the update. I told my fiancé that I know about his infidelity and cancelled the wedding. He still wants a second chance. So I've written here 3 days ago before I talked to my fiancé. This is after I told him that I know about his cheating. I started by telling my parents, who were paying for the wedding, about what happened, and that I'm cancelling the wedding. Hopefully they can get back some of what they paid via their home insurance. I have told them that I'm going to pay the rest of the damages. My dad refused, but I insisted. It's not up to them. Since my fiancé still lives with his parents, I felt that I would be outnumbered if I went alone to end it. Text or call wasn't an option, since he meant a lot more to me than that, and I really wanted to see his face and ask, "What the hell, man? How could you do this to me after everything I've done for you?" I also wanted him to see my hurt. I don't want it to be comfortable for him. Cheaters must see the hurt they cause and hopefully learn from it. I took my mum with me. When I told him that the wedding was off and the reason why, he started crying. He told me all things they say in desperation. He was foolish, he didn't think, he was stressed out, he was scared, it meant nothing, he regretted it, he didn't want to tell me because it meant nothing and he didn't want to hurt me. I should give him a chance to prove himself and his loyalty. He can ask his parents to pay for the wedding, we can postpone the wedding indefinitely, I can take the apartment and he will live with his parents. Anything, as long as it takes for me to forgive him. I haven't cried as much as I did when I was listening to his bullcrap, and afterwards on my way home. How could he do this to me? He didn't give me a satisfying answer to why he did this to me. To us. I have cried myself to sleep every night since the accident, and yet I cry like I've just found out. I'm going to stay at the apartment that we bought together, and he will stay with his parents. Prices have gone down these last couple of months, and we both agreed that we don't want to sell for less than what we paid. But the moment it goes up again, we are selling. I've started packing his things now, and tomorrow I'm renting a van to move his things to his parents' house. Sorting out his stuff and packing his clothes made it real for me. I didn't expect it to be so emotional. Like, why do I still love him so much? He has been texting me, and he's called me twice, and we talked mostly about mundane stuff, but also about us and our relationship. His mum has called me to say that she felt guilty for first not advising him to come clean, but even for later divulging his secret to me without his permission. She was disappointed that I took advantage of her moment of panic, but that she understands that I'm hurt. She said he will do his best to win me back. I'm a bit irritated about the fact that none of them, including my parents, believe that it is really over, and I don't have the energy to prove my point either. I just need some alone time now, and some peace and quiet. And yeah, you deserve some alone time and peace and quiet. This man deserves nothing. His family deserves even less than nothing for that. From my point of view, there is no universe where he wins you back. The only thing he can do is apologize and leave. I would be very surprised if you, after all of this, ever took him back, even gave him a slight chance of taking him back, even stay in contact with this person. I too would also be irritated by the fact that even your parents don't believe that it's really over. How do you not all see the writing on the wall? Have they poisoned the well? Have they got to you before me so they can spin their little web of lies? Am I taking crazy pills? Take that alone time, OP, recover, and come back better than everyone else in this story, Jesus. And now in the comments, as many have said, you should not get back with him, but I will add something about this. Quote, he didn't give me a satisfying answer as to why he did this to me. Unfortunately, there is never a satisfying answer. No matter what his reasoning is, you will always find yourself thinking, but if he loved me, he would not have done this to me. Most satisfying answer, I never loved you. I would always have done this to you. I hope that makes you feel better. That's because you are not a cheater. A great piece of advice that I once read is that it's not healthy to dwell on the why someone hurt you. If you cannot understand why someone would hurt you in that way, it's because you were not like them, and that should be your closure. This is fantastic advice, and it can turn a few months or years of searching for the answer into moving on and up with my own life. Bravo. If his mum calls again, do not answer. She is not responsible for this situation, her son is, and she needs to butt out of it. Plus, she continues to make OP the bad guy and has no good intentions when reaching out to her. Exactly. Stop engaging with his mum. He is the cheater. OP did nothing wrong, and the fact that the mum is berating her for dumping a cheater just because the information was given in a moment of weakness, i.e. guilt, she does not need to ignore it. Not to mention the mother was one of the people who encouraged him to lie to OP. She sucks. You know what I do when I'm stressed? I overeat a bit, maybe spend a little more than I should online shopping, color my hair. I don't somehow find myself naked with an ex while my significant other sits at home. Seriously, like, when I'm stressed, I like to shop or clean the house. I feel like cheating on the person you're about to marry with some random ex would make things more stressful. I can't believe the reasoning was that he was stressed because of the wedding. Imagine what he would do when something actually stressful happens. Not that stress is a valid excuse at all. The mother-in-law 100% enables all of his behavior. You could easily see this whole situation repeating, especially if OP got pregnant, the stress of the baby and all that. Or if the OP got seriously ill, that's very stressful too. He's going to end up cheating all over the place because of his stress. Exactly. At the end of the day, it's just an excuse that he used to justify his awful behavior without really taking any accountability for it. He was upset he got caught and paid consequences, not that he actually cheated. I also have to wonder how he treats women in general if having sex with a woman doesn't matter. What about his ex's feelings? And I doubt he ran into her. That meetup was planned. I also doubt that this was the first and only time that he cheated. Best quote about cheating? Is it supposed to make me feel better that you betrayed me for nothing? Also, all the promises and whatever it takes. You're willing to put in all this effort when all you had to do was say no. Just ran into her. That is always a lie. Conveniences like that are always a lie. It's like when my buddy found out his roommate was messing around with a girl that he was seeing, but the dude insisted I never had sex with her. It's just something they throw in to try and take it away from being completely unforgivable. FYI, both of these instances are completely unforgivable anyway, in my opinion. I, 18 female, walked in on my mum teasing my dad while wearing one of my dresses. It sounds like something out of one of those really bad Netflix movies, but it's unfortunately, for me, true. I was over at a friend's house for most of the day yesterday, and I wasn't supposed to be coming home until later in the evening. This is super common for me right now, as my friend has a pool and stuff, so I've been at her house a lot since school ended a few weeks ago. Mid-afternoon, we decided to go and just drive around. We then wanted to go shopping. I didn't bring my money with me, as I keep my savings in cash in this little jar so I don't spend it so impulsively. We decided to go by my house to grab some cash on the way to the mall. When we got there, my friend waited in the car because I was only going to be a couple of minutes. When I walked into my house though, my parents were on the couch. Now, I don't want to be too overly graphic about what was going on, but my mum was on my dad's lap, teasing him, and it was very clear that they were about to have sex. They both froze when they saw me. What are you doing, step-parents? Which is to be totally expected because they didn't plan on being interrupted at all. I was frozen too. Then after a couple of seconds, I realized my mum was literally wearing one of my favorite dresses. Like, I wear it all the time. Not even like it's really revealing or anything, it's just a normal summer dress. We were all looking at each other in shock for a few seconds before my mum just said, "I'm so sorry, sweetie." I ran back out of the house and was crying by the time I made it to my friend's car. I started explaining to her what I had just seen, and she was calming me down, but then my mother came out of the house after me, literally still wearing my dress. What the fuck? I told my friend to drive away before she got to the car, and we went back to her house. We didn't give her parents any details about what happened, just that I had some family drama. I've been friends with her since way back, so they told me that I can sleep at their house for a couple of days until I figure things out. I barely slept last night at all. Every time I close my eyes, it's like I see it in my head. My mum's called me a bunch of times, but I only texted her back to let her know where I am, and I told her that I need time before I am ready to talk to them. She replied again, apologizing, and wants me to come home today to talk to them. I don't think I can do that yet. Even typing this out, I've started shaking with nerves about it. What do I do now? I've never felt unsafe in my house before at all, but I also don't know if I'm comfortable being around my parents now that I know that they are literally pretending that she is me. I am so grossed out, and I think I want to burn every piece of clothing I've ever owned. Edit, I really didn't want to write anything erotic about my parents on here, but since it's been suggested that they might not have been about to have sex a couple of times over messages and stuff, here goes. The top portion of the dress was pulled down, and they were doing stuff. If they weren't about to have sex, they were at least being sexual. Edit 2, I'm not upset at all that my parents were having sex, it's the fact that they were about to have sex while my mum was wearing one of my favorite dresses. She and I never share clothes, and I've been trying to rationalize this some other way, but I don't see why she would have gone into my room and gotten that dress unless it was for what I interrupted them doing. You can see why I said I'm losing my faith in humanity here. I'm not, I wasn't ready for this story today. Oh my god. The question they want answered is, what do I do now? Lie down. Try not to cry. Cry a lot. I don't know. I don't have the answer to this one. I'm very uncomfortable, but I'm also very curious how you figured this situation out, that's for sure. Now in the comments, I would probably think about finding a new dress. And OP replies, oh, that dress is going in a fire if I ever see it again. My mum did some weird stuff like this too. Can confirm burning said blanket made me feel better. I feel for you. It's creepy and a huge boundary has been crossed. I'm 28 now and am still weird about people touching my bedding or clothing. I just cannot. I have a 28-year-old daughter and the thought of violating her privacy makes me feel sick. So many levels of wrong I can't even count. I can't imagine this level of betrayal ever being fully forgiven. I am so sorry that you were let down by the person who should have been your greatest protector. I really wish I hadn't read this. Touché. Yup. Especially since I've seen a lot of recent posts of mums handing down their clothes and bikinis to their daughters, and the dads not liking it because obviously they'd seen it on their wife all the time, and it's just weird. Not necessarily pervy in my opinion, just really freaking weird. See, those stories are good because the father is uncomfortable, especially the bikini one, since OP knew that was a bikini that he and she thought she was sexy in. Like, I don't know why she even thought to give that to her daughter. This one, however, is like those, but the opposite. Ah yes, a tutorial on how to get irreversible trauma in less than 30 seconds. These comments are making me feel crazy, like, obviously it's not about the act of your parents having sex, it's the fact that your mum was wearing your clothes. And of course, that is wildly inappropriate. The most innocent reason is that your mum wanted to wear a cute sundress for sexy times, but to that I say, oh my god, get your own goddamn dress, not your teenage daughter's. Completely disrespectful and gross. I'm sorry, OP. You're totally valid for feeling gross about this, so take time to prepare yourself for the conversation it will result in, and make sure you set up a support plan in advance in case it's ongoing or more of an issue than you thought. Good luck. And now, on to the update. Alright, I promised to give an update on my situation, and honestly, I feel like writing things has been pretty helpful to me, so here goes. Several people on my initial post advised that I should speak with a therapist before seeing or speaking with either of my parents. I called one that I had seen a few times in the past, and she was able to book me in for an emergency session, and she really helped me through what I saw, as well as my worries, and constructing a list of questions to ask my mum when I spoke with her. I met with my mother over the weekend. We met at this park near our house in the afternoon, and sat away from everyone. My friend who I'm staying with and her boyfriend went with me for moral support, but they hung back and let me talk to my mother alone. I'm not going to go through our entire conversation because we talked for over an hour, but it was pretty much what I had feared. She was role-playing as me when I walked in on her and Dad. She wouldn't confirm how long that it had been going on for, but gave me a list of several pieces of my clothing, 3 dresses, and then 2 of my sleep sets, which she had previously borrowed. She claims they were all cleaned thoroughly before returning them, and I had no reason to believe that she wouldn't have cleaned them. But I'm never going to wear any of those things again regardless. It was probably stupid of me, but I asked which one of them came up with the idea for her to roleplay as me. No, don't ask that question, that's just terrible, that's a bad idea. According to her, it was her own idea. I still don't feel comfortable seeing or talking to my dad, and he hasn't reached out since I walked in on them either, so I guess he isn't comfortable talking to me about it either. My dad was at work when I spoke with her. I made sure of that because I wanted to be able to go by the house and get a few more of my things. She let me go there alone with my friends and get the things I needed before going back to her place. I'm still working on where I go from here. I ended up having to fully explain the situation to my friends' parents. They were both extremely understanding and willing to let me rent their spare bedroom for a few months while I figure something else out. I'm working on getting more hours at work too. So yeah, that's pretty much all that happened. I doubt that I'll update beyond this, but I am sincerely thankful to everybody who reached out and tried to help me. And now in the comments, I think my soul just threw up a bit. This is the worst scenario I could think of reading your original post, and I only have well wishes for you, and that I hope that you'll go on to heal from this, far away from these people. I can't with this story. It was worse than I thought going into this. It was the mum. The mum wanted to do it. The mum got the dad into it, and then they got walked in on. Oh, pain. I'd go no contact for so long. So very long. You're not seeing me for the next century. Goodbye, parents. What in God's name? Honestly, I feel worse about this story than the slug one. You guys tried to get me with that story. This is way worse than that story to me. Anyway, more comments. Effing disgusting parents. Literal and true creeps. People like these need to be kept away from children. To think they watched their child grow up and made her into a freaking fetish makes me want to vomit. I don't even know OP, and I feel so violated and disgusted on her behalf. Nasty, sick pedos. Even if the mother is a creep who suggested it, the father went along with it too. They are both deranged and depraved. I can bet she's not giving you an appropriate timeline because it's been going on since you were a minor. Yuck. Oh my god, I am so sorry that this is happening to you. I'm also very glad that your friend's parents are letting you stay for now. I hope you continue with therapy because this is a very hard reality to swallow and a tough situation to be in. Please, if you ever consider re-establishing continued contact with your parents, make it a necessity that they need to have been in therapy for their behavior for at least several months. Some kinks are just too harmful to be left in the secrecy of the bedroom, especially since this one is out in the open and sheds a completely different and sick light on both of your parents' relationship with you. If possible, you should only talk to your parents in a safe environment with others around, preferably a family therapist. But if I were in your position, I would need a lot of distance and security, as in getting financially independent, etc. from them, for myself, for a long time, before I could even think about re-establishing contact. Best of luck in healing. I hope you're doing as okay as you can during this situation. You don't have to answer if you're not comfortable, but I'm curious as to the rest of your conversation. Did she even acknowledge how messed up what she was doing was, or why they would ever want to roleplay as you? Did she even apologize? I am so sorry this happened to you, OP. Nobody deserves to be sexualized by their own parents. And OP replies, she apologized that I walked in on it. She kept telling me that it wasn't something they had ever planned on anyone else knowing, as though she would ever tell someone that under normal circumstances. She never specifically said she was sorry for taking my clothes or pretending to be me though. It was always framed as, sorry you saw that, and sorry you feel that way. I didn't feel like there was a lot of remorse on her end. You're right. That's not a real apology, and it's clear she still doesn't know how seriously screwed up their behavior was. I think we're done with that story for now. I think we can let that one rest. Moving on, our next story is titled, I'm planning to elope because my parents are trying to make me agree to letting my sister's boyfriend propose to my sister at my wedding. Maybe this is the wrong place, but I'm going to explode with rage and disappointment at my family. My baby sister is the golden child, or maybe that's unfair to say. She survived cancer when she was a child. It was the darkest period of my parents' life. I don't remember much of it because my parents shielded me from the horrific truth. I knew she was sick, and I remember all my childhood spent in hospitals, but never did I know that my sister almost died until many years later. I was 12 and she was 10. After she beat her sickness, she became the obvious favorite in the house. She got everything she wanted, and sometimes it was at my expense. I resented that, but I always heard that I was a naughty girl for being jealous of my hero sister. My sister grew up to be a brat. Now 20 years later, she is still bratty, although we get along a lot better than we were when we were teenagers and young adults. My wedding is in July. Neither my fiancé nor I have the money for a big wedding. We settled for a small wedding of 30 people and my fiancé's grandparents who have a beautiful house with a lake view. My parents, when they heard this, said no way, and offered to pay for a bigger wedding at a better venue. We didn't agree at first, but later we did not want to disappoint them. It seemed like it was important to them. Last week, my mum invited me over. My dad, mum, and my sister's boyfriend asked me what I would think if my sister's boyfriend proposed to my sister during the wedding, so it becomes an engagement party as well as a wedding. My mum has seen reels on Instagram about people proposing to maids of honors and bridesmaids and thought it was cute. My sister is my maid of honor. I said no, that's ridiculous, and I laughed. My mum was livid. She told me that I was selfish and ungrateful, and I accused her of favoritism. I told her that I always thought that it was odd that you'd pay for my wedding, but now I know the reason why. She started crying and kicked me out of the house. Later, both she and my future brother-in-law sent me texts warning me from exposing their plan to my sister. My fiancé was disappointed, but I'm not sure what we could do. My parents have spent almost $30,000 and it's too late to cancel. My mother called me today to plan the proposal and I begged her not to ruin my day. She told me since she was paying, she can make requests and that I should let go of my jealousy and resentment towards my sister because she is innocent in all of this. But the thing is, this day will be about my sister. I told my fiancé to ask his grandparents if they're still willing to host my wedding. If they are, I will just revert to our original plan. If not, I will just elope. I'm not sure yet if I'm going to tell my family and cancel the wedding, or just let them have their grand proposal party. None of my family is invited to my wedding, including my sister. Thank you for listening. Call it off. Call it off. Ruin their plans. What selfish pricks, the lot of them. I see another group of people I can toss right into the basket of assholes. If it is true that your sister is innocent in all of this, then I feel sorry that she's about to be caught up in a storm of drama. It won't be her fault, it will be your family's fault for dumping this on you, and then blackmailing you and trying to force you into doing it because they spent $30,000 on your wedding. If you can't get the grandparents to set you up at their place with a wedding, I'd drop this one like a hot potato, like you're planning to. I fully support it, OP. And now in the comments, uninvite them. Go do the wedding at the grandparents' house and let your sister and parents have a $30,000 engagement party. It's great that your sister survived cancer, but your parents put you on a back burner for your whole life. Now it's your turn to enjoy it. Do what's best for you. Definitely this. I would elope or do the wedding at the grandparents. Why do so many people want to ruin other people's special moments? What the heck is wrong with people? Agree with this comment. Don't let your parents be the reason you can't make that day about just the two of you. At some point, if this were my family, I would likely say to my mom that if the $30,000 was going to be controlled by her, even in including things her daughter, the bride, wasn't okay with, then it wasn't a gift, but a manipulation, and should have come with those stipulations up front so I could have made an informed decision about whether or not to accept the money. But stating those stipulations after the money had already been used is disrespectful and not how a gift should be given. Info. Would you tell your parents about their missing your real wedding at some point? And weird random thought. I wonder what would happen if during her sister's wedding, if Opie announced a pregnancy or a gender reveal. I'd be very curious if their mum would suddenly see how it's stealing the other person's thunder. I'd elope, but don't cancel the venue and show up in jeans and a t-shirt for the engagement party. And OP replies, I like this. And you should bring photocopies of your wedding/elopement that they all weren't invited to, just to add more salt and hilarity with only me and my husband had such a wonderful ceremony and reception without any of you. It was beautiful and lovely. That's messed up, and you're right, this was all pre-planned. If you do have it at a fiancé's grandparents, will you invite your family? It seems they can't stand for you to be the center of attention, even on a day that you should be. And OP replies, I won't. I am done. Good for you, because this is crazy. You can't just have one day for yourself? Wow. And now onto the update. I've eloped a week earlier because my parents and my sister's boyfriend were planning a surprise engagement on my wedding day. I really want to thank everyone that showed me support. I'm now happily married and in Como, Italy for my honeymoon. I've tried to stay away from my phone, but I was so curious to see my family's reaction to my elopement a week earlier than planned. It was really ugly. I must start with saying that I really tried my best to negotiate and compromise with my family and truly explain that this was hurting me. I have nothing against my sister, and to be honest, nothing against her getting engaged on my wedding, but the principle that it was made very clear to me that I had absolutely no opinion or say in what was going to happen on what was supposed to be my special day was where I drew the line. It wasn't a wish or a request, it was a matter of fact, and it was decided. So I told my mom that I am not going to attend the party that she has paid for. Maybe they should just make it an engagement party instead. She got very upset and told me that the engagement was supposed to be a surprise. I told her that I was just giving her the heads up since she's about to lose an insane amount of money. She didn't take me seriously, like I wasn't going to cancel my wedding because of a trivial thing. What she didn't know is that I've already made plans to get married a week earlier at my grandparents-in-law. We invited our closest friends, and some even had to book earlier flights and take more vacation days, and for these people, I was extra grateful. What was left was my sister. I had been back and forth arguing and negotiating with my parents and future brother-in-law. I decided that even if this would ruin her surprise, I had to tell her, so I did. She wasn't really happy with my mom, but she was more upset that I ruined her surprise, and she, as I expected, thought I could have just sucked it up and gone with the flow. I didn't tell her about my new wedding date. The wedding was dreamlike. In the back of my head, I was hurt the people who loved me the most weren't there, but I pushed that thought away and refused to let it ruin our day. My husband was amazing. He promised to make me happy for the rest of my life and to make up for every heartbreak I've experienced in my past. My in-laws surprised us with upgrading our honeymoon to a 5-star hotel. I had my friends and some cousins and my favorite aunt attending. We asked them not to livestream or upload any pictures to social media until we are already on our honeymoon. We also asked them not to engage in any altercations online with my family. Today, my mum made a long Facebook, Twitter, Instagram posts bashing me and my husband, calling me ungrateful and disrespectful with pictures of my wedding, telling people that I have cost her a huge chunk of her savings and she is now demanding compensation. Her Facebook post was shared about 200 times and the majority of my extended family is angry with me. She never once tried to contact me. I really thought she would bombard my phone. Instead, both her and my dad announced that they are cutting me off and expecting compensation. Future brother-in-law commented that I ruined his surprise, and my sister made a post about being tired of jealous biz and haters. None of the people we invited had commented, even though some of them were directly attacked, so they respected our wishes. I don't know if they're going to go ahead and turn the wedding into an engagement party now. I really hope they do, so the money isn't wasted. It's on Saturday. I'm sorry for the update going too long, but with the amount of people asking for an update, I hope this was what you wanted. And as is a classic on these eloquent and well-written posts, P.S. English isn't my native language, and it's too long of a post to proofread, especially when it's written on my iPhone. And now in the comments, so your mom tried to ruin your wedding by making it all about your sister's engagement and expects to be paid for it. Baby, congratulations on your wedding and your new peace and quiet. Please announce your pregnancy at her wedding. Even if you are not pregnant, get up as if you're going to make a speech and announce that you are pregnant. And OP replies, ha, that is if I was invited to the wedding at all. Maybe you should just post your whole story from here to a Facebook post and log off. I don't think they're going to listen to you, so take a cathartic experience writing it all down and let the world see it. I'm sure their entitled behavior won't like the truth. Congrats! Are you going to make a Facebook post telling your side of the story? And OP replies, thank you. No, I'm not going to. I'm glad that I got an outlet for my frustration here instead. Generally, I'm all for taking the high road and not airing family business in public. However, it is already out there. You really should consider posting the full and accurate story of what happened. The only reason your parents paid for your wedding was to turn it into an event for your sister. You have spent your life letting them set the narrative and push you aside. You need to post the whole story, including how you were treated as a child, to explain why you were cutting contact for the time being. You wanted one day, your wedding day, to be about you and your husband. They couldn't let you have that. They had to make it about your sister because everything has to be about your sister as far as they are concerned. When they informed you that they were doing it anyway because they were paying, you simply went back to the original plan. You might be surprised at how many people in your extended family, upon hearing the whole story, would back you. All they have now is the story your parents are putting out. Give them the truth. The problem with taking the high road is that you end up becoming a doormat to people like your parents. They count on you shying away from drama to push their narrative and get away with their crap. The best way to put a stop to it is to stop letting them have that control. Congrats on your wedding. Quote, Childhood Cancer Fund, in our names like what we have requested as a wedding gift from our guests. Even the gifts were about the sister's cancer survival? This really jumped out to me too. OP is still in the backseat mode, even for her own wedding. She recognizes that her brat sister is the golden child, but she's still not yet out of the groove of putting her sister's status as the survivor above her own needs. She's never ever going to be important to her bio family. It's great that she married into a better family and that she has true friends who adjusted their schedules for her special day. I read that as a desperate attempt to appease her parents and or get their approval, which they probably didn't even care about because sister is no longer a child with cancer, so why wouldn't you have your guests donate the money directly to OP's sister? Surviving a deadly disease does not make you a hero, unpopular opinion as it is. The fact that your parents favored the child with cancer, instead of realizing that they could just as easily lose either child to some random-ass bullcrap, is appalling to me. Surviving a deadly disease makes you a survivor. The parents are such assholes. This all could have been avoided if they hadn't started hero-worshipping the younger sister. A year or two after finally beating the cancer seems okay, but a lifetime of that crap just makes an entitled brat. Am I the asshole for punishing my son harshly for a prank on a vulnerable person? I, female 48, have a son, Jack, male 19, and a daughter, Alyssa, female 18, and am married to Tom, male 50. Tom is Alyssa's father, but Jack's father is my ex-husband Dan, male 48. Dan and I had a pretty ugly custody fight, and he lives in New York while we live in Texas. Over the years, Dan has unsuccessfully tried to get Jack to move in with him. It wasn't easy to fight him off since he's a very successful lawyer. Jack is a pretty popular kid in school. His friends on the wrestling team came up with a prank for him to ask a heavily autistic girl who had a crush on him to the prom as a joke, and for him to show up wearing a gorilla suit. Jack originally said no, but the wrestling team actually raised a fund, which got to be somewhat north of $800 for him to do it, and they paid for the gorilla suit. Jack agreed. If it matters, this is very out of character for him. After the prom, I was looking around on Instagram and saw pictures of him in the gorilla suit, and I was surprised that he didn't take his girlfriend Jess. After reading the comments, I learned what happened. To say I was furious doesn't even do it justice. I woke Jack up as soon as I saw it and screamed at him until my lungs gave out. Then, when Tom heard what was going on, he joined in too. Tom and Jack have never gotten along. I can't prove it, but I suspect Jack's father Dan has a hand in that. Jack told Tom to F off, I'm talking to my mother. So, we took away all of Jack's electronics, his phone, and we had paid for a car for his graduation present. Because of his prank and disrespect to Tom, we gave it instead to Alyssa. We also forced him to give us the $800 back, and we gave it to his date and made him write a letter of apology. He was also grounded for a month, and we cancelled his 18th birthday party. When Jack's birthday came, there was a knock at the door. It was Dan, and he had suitcases. Tom said, "What is this? The custody agreement says that you don't get him on this birthday." Dan just looked past Tom and said, "Hey kid, I'm here for the jailbreak." He then pointed at a Mustang and said, "Hope you like Fords. You can practice driving a new car on a road trip back to New York. Let's take a detour to New Orleans." The two of them were laughing, high-fiving and backslapping, and they just ignored us as we tried to intervene. The only time Dan acknowledged me was to look me in the eye and say cold as ice, "Checkmate." And for Jack to yell as they were driving off, "F off, Tom." Since then, Jack has gone totally no contact with me. He talks a little bit to Alyssa, and from the little he does tell her, he's doing well, and Dan is giving him the royal treatment, bringing him to steakhouses, Yankees games, and just giving him outright cash. It has been almost a year, and I'm going crazy thinking I've lost my son. So, am I the asshole? Edit. I see there is a little confusion here about whether Alyssa is my daughter or stepdaughter. She is my stepdaughter. We really have a mother-daughter relationship to the point where it doesn't even occur to me to call her my step. At the risk of understatement, Jack never warmed to Tom the same way. OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the asshole. The action I took, which should be judged, was punishing my son for grounding him for a month, cancelling his 18th birthday party, giving away the $800, and giving the car we were buying him to his sister. I wonder if I was too harsh since he hasn't talked to me in almost a year. You're the asshole because clearly you don't know about punishments. I mean, giving what was supposed to be his to another kid? Yeah, that's the biggest no-no. There are many ways you could have went about this, but you didn't, and now you did lose your son. Pranking someone who is autistic is absolutely horrible and disgusting, but I don't think you went about your punishment in the right way. It seems like he doesn't get what he did, and you didn't even try to tell him. You just took away his car and money, which his dad has now bought for him. I don't know, no advice here, but lesson learned. You're the asshole. A kid who grows up to be a person who takes an autistic girl to prom while dressed in a gorilla suit does not happen overnight. You yourself have said that you were not equitable in terms of child custody, and it turns out that you were just using the child support to pay the mortgage. On top of that, the child support was supporting Tom, who was on disability, and it makes sense for a kid who does not like his stepfather trying to be his father to be upset that the money that is supposed to be for the child support was used to support someone who then decided to turn around and be the strict parent. You do realize that the moment you started supporting Tom with Jack's money, because that is what child support is, that Jack's disrespect for his stepfather was going to deepen. Especially if Tom can go turn off Jack's Xbox, and then Tom can heat up his own damn plate. And then to make it difficult for Dan to see Jack, and also have him support your entire household? Yeah. I'm more inclined to believe that you're upset, initially, at losing your piggy bank, and now you're regretting anything because now there are questions on how you spent the money. The bit of mum guilt regarding Easter is a nice touch to add for those inclined to see the best in a parent who tried to punish her child. However, your main focus, as stated either outright or not in numerous comments you have posted, was to get ahead of Dan. If you had a more equitable custody issue and weren't so money hungry, I honestly don't think Dan would have been as bad. As it is, you chose all of this. You chose to keep Dan away from his son. You chose to make Jack's child support a big part of your household budget to where you are now panicking about a mortgage payment. You chose to let Tom be strict with Jack. You chose money and Tom over Jack, and I'm guessing that he already saw that, and that's why he went off with his father so willingly and stayed no contact with you. And someone replies to that, I didn't notice this on my first pass, but I think you're right. This was always about the money. It will be interesting to see how long Tom sticks around without Dan's wallet. I had to scroll through OP's comments, and honestly, I think that's good that Jack left because now he's no longer footing the bill for Tom or his mum. A minor child's child support should not be used to where it makes up for the largest or a large chunk of the household budget to where the budget is screwed if it is suddenly gone. When I found that out, it was a hard you're the asshole for the OP for me, because now the child support isn't for the child, it's for the adult who chose a mortgage that they could not afford on one income. Not knocking those that do choose to buy a house where it takes two incomes, but the income to support it should never be a child's child support. By doing that, OP opened herself up to audits from the ex because the money was not used as intended, and for that I have zero empathy because she brought that on herself. And now onto the update. So I was denied an official update, but a few of you cared enough about all of this to ask me for updates periodically, so here it is. On the advice of some of the posters, I reached out to Dan to see if he would be willing to consider brokering peace between me and Jack. About a week later, I got a response telling me to meet him and Jack at a cafe in Manhattan. He arranged a 6 a.m. flight and put me in a dodgy hotel in probably the most dangerous neighborhood in New York City. I arrived and saw Dan, Jack, Jack's girlfriend Jess, and his friend from a past firm, Jonathan. I noticed that Jess had an engagement ring on her finger. Jonathan said Jack has a claim against me for stealing the $840, and until that is resolved, I am not to contact him, but to only contact Jonathan. I told Jonathan that that's the money his friend paid him for the prank and that I gave it to the girl. Jonathan said he was aware of the circumstances, but nonetheless it wasn't my money, and under the law, it was a theft and Jack has a legal claim against me. I said I don't care if it was against the law. Jack had no right to that money, and they can sue me if they wanted. Jack said, "You locked me up in my room like a prisoner for a month, took the car that you bought for me with Dad's child support money, took the money, and berated me for hours on end. Unless you're going to give me the car, this is the only thing you can undo. You said you wished we could have handled it better, so here is your chance. Or was that just bullcrap lip service?" I told him that I was sorry, but I can't do it. Jonathan then gave me a cease and desist letter telling me to not contact Jack and to address all communication to Jonathan. Then Jack and Jess left, and I asked Dan if he could talk for a minute. I asked him if he brought me there to humiliate me, and he said actually no he didn't. He brought me so I could humiliate myself. He had actually worked very hard to get Jack to the point where he'd be open to talking to me again if I were willing to back down just a little, but since he knew that if I had to choose between my indignation and my own son, that I'd choose my indignation every time, just like I did in our marriage. I asked him why he would put us through all that. He said that it was because a part of him wondered if I'd ever learn to pick love over anger. He bet his future that I wouldn't when he divorced me. So he had to see for himself how it actually turned out after all these years later. I asked him if Jack was just a pawn in his game, and he said no. If I actually would have picked Jack, he'd be with me now, and there would have been nothing anyone could have done to stop it. But instead, my indignation over a stranger was more important to me than learning to move on with my own son. I asked him what about the girl. He then said, "I hope she'll be a wonderful daughter to you since you lost a son for her." I told her that I don't know the girl. So then he said, "Sounds like a bad trade," and left. Also, I'm apparently not invited to Jack's wedding. And now in the comments, "The inciting incident here just makes me sad, man. When I went to prom, a girl in our group got asked out by an autistic guy in our class, and not having anyone else she wanted to go with or to make him feel left out, she said yes. It was clear from the jump that they were going as friends, but he was still psyched and we were all happy to see it. By the time we actually got to the dance, he was so anxious about the whole thing that he locked himself in a stall in tears. When I went to cheer him up, every single other guy that saw what was going on came to have his back too. When he was confident enough to head back out, we went with him, and not a single one of the girls said so much as a negative word about it. Not because he was special, but because he was a nice dude, and none of us wanted to leave a man down. Now that I'm older, I'm sure nothing any of us did made some crucial, foundational, positive memory for him, but I'm just glad that we did what we could to help prevent it from being a bad one. The idea of taking $800 in exchange for that guy's dignity like this kid did to the girl in his class is so fundamentally disgusting that all of my thoughts about it are TOS violations. What's the am I the asshole term for everyone involved as an asshole? That so much. Son is an asshole for this horrible prank. Stepdad is an asshole for beefing with a teenager. Just from reading this story, you can tell there is a lot that we aren't hearing. Mum is an asshole for letting stepdad treat her son like crap. I don't know why they don't like each other. Oh yeah, he favors corporal punishment and jumps at the chance to yell at my son, but he's an old man with a bad back, so it doesn't count. It must be my ex's fault. The punishment sounds like the final straw in a screwed up relationship, even if the kid absolutely deserved to have his feet held to the fire. Dad/ex is an asshole for enabling his son's shitty behavior just to get back at his ex. Like, yeah, jailbreak your son from that toxic household, but for Christ's sakes, don't let him off the hook for humiliating an autistic kid so badly. That's some carry crap right there. The son is lucky telekinesis doesn't exist IRL. Even putting the mum's bias against her ex aside, I definitely get the vibe that the dad is willing to use his son to hurt the mum, which is super screwed up. No wonder son is shitty enough to humiliate an autistic kid. Has this guy ever had a non-toxic parental figure? In conclusion, I hope the autistic girl lives a long and happy life full of kindness and empathy. I hope Jack gets away from all these shitty adults and grows a sense of empathy, shame, and conscience, and I hope Alyssa manages to escape the toxic dynamics that have already ensnared her brother. Everyone else can go to hell. Thank you and good night. Dad, I played a horrible prank on a vulnerable person and got a somewhat harsh punishment. Oh, don't worry, son. I'm gonna show up with your own fancy car and shower you with cash. Cool, Dad. I feel so cool about my piece of crap actions now. For me, the worst part is how petty the son is being over the $800. If he had asked for his car back, I would understand, but no. He doesn't need the old car now that Dad has got him a fancy car, so he decides to dig in and ask for the money that he was paid to be terrible to a girl who didn't deserve it. If the OP should read this, I'm sorry that you're going through this, and especially that your son is being a complete ass. I would not give him the money because he's essentially saying that he values your relationship at $800. That is awful. Our next post is titled, I, 35 male, think my sister-in-law, 40 female, is messing with me, but I'm not too sure. Okay, I know this will sound weird, but stay with me here. A few years ago, I got diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder, depressive type. It kind of came later in life, so when the symptoms hit, I was working full-time and had a decent job. After it started getting worse, I ended up losing my job, and now I'm in the process of going for disability. It's not where I wanted to go in life, but I'm trying my best. It's been hard. Trying to find the right medication is a cow, but I've found ones that are working wonders, and my hallucinations have been down by a lot. Things were starting to look up. So my wife Kathy, 33 female, has been really supportive and is basically supporting me financially. It's one of the hardest things about going through this, to be honest, having to live like a deadbeat husband and having my wife work extra hard for the both of us. Her family has been less than thrilled, and I can't really blame them. I'm still cordial with them, but it's tense. A few months ago, Kathy's sister, Sue, left her husband and came to live with us along with her baby. I can't say I'm happy with new people in the house, but I understood and tried to be accommodating with her, and for a while, things were good between Sue and I. She's always been a little nervous with me ever since my diagnosis, as when it first came out, she immediately sent a text to my wife saying she didn't trust me around her kid for babysitting anymore, but she had seemed to lighten up and everything seemed good. It started last month where, every time I walked past Sue when we were alone, I'd hear her whisper stuff that I couldn't make out. I'd ask her if she said anything, and she'd always said no, and so I assumed that she was mishearing stuff, or maybe it was my audio hallucinations. But it started to happen more often, like every damn time I was near her. Sometimes we'd be watching a show, and I'd hear whispering coming from her, but I never could get a good look at her mouth to see if it was her or not. She'd either be turned away from me, or behind and in front of me. The whispers started getting louder, and I could actually make out what they were saying. Stuff like, "Kill them all," or "I want that cow," which really started to worry me. My hallucinations always have been kind of rough, but they've always seemed focused on me. Stuff like, "I hate you," or "You're a failure," or maybe even, "The boy who lived came to die." Never the other stuff, so I was worried that they were going to get worse on me. Then I started hearing voices from other rooms. It sounded like someone was talking from other rooms, and anytime I'd ask Sue if she'd heard anything, she'd claim not to. The weird thing is, my audio hallucinations are different from what I was hearing. My hallucinations have always sounded female, where the voices from the other room have been male. My voices also sound like they are whispering right next to my ear, while these ones sounded like they were taking place somewhere else. The weirdest part was that what the voices said sounded a lot like a meme from 4chan. They like to message people from the schizophrenia subreddit and tell them that they are hiding in their walls, and that's exactly what I was hearing in the other room. I started searching for the source of the voices around the house, but Sue got scared and started telling my wife I was going crazy again. I know it looked bad, but my hallucinations sound and say different things, so I was making sure that it wasn't something else. Today, things got worse. My medication ended up being missing. Like I kept it in the kitchen at night, but the bottle was gone this morning. When I asked Sue if she saw my medication, she got really scared and hid in her room with the baby. Her mom and dad came over, and they weren't necessarily hostile with me, but they blocked my way and took Sue to their house for the day. They called up my wife and told them that I had been harassing her and going crazy at Sue, and they feared for Sue and her baby with the schizo around. I really think Sue is messing with me. I've had trouble taking my medications in the past when my symptoms were at the worst, but I really liked this medication that I was on, and I'm nervous about waiting a few days for more of it. The problem is, I really could be hallucinating everything. Yeah, it's different from my other hallucinations that I had in the past, but hallucinations can change with time, and if I was becoming delusional again, not like I'd really know it either. I really don't want to be scaring Sue, but it just doesn't seem right. None of this stuff happens when my wife gets back home from work, only when it's just me and Sue at home. I didn't think that she'd be capable of doing stuff like this, but everything about this just feels wrong. I'm not sure how my wife is feeling about this. I haven't had a chance to talk to her in depth about it, and what little we do get to talk about, I couldn't really tell how she was feeling about everything. She's been my biggest cheerleader and supporter throughout all of this, but her family is saying my symptoms are targeting her sister and nephew now, so I'm not too sure what's going through her mind. I just don't know what to do. Ever since this started happening, my symptoms have made a comeback, so I've heard my usual hallucinations from the stress of everything. I don't want to be a monster, and I was thinking of maybe getting myself into the psych ward, but I just have this feeling that this is just Sue effing with me. My delusions and hallucinations have always been spirit-related, not targeting anyone specifically. And if it is Sue that is doing this, why in the world would she be messing with me like this if she truly believed I was dangerous? What should I do? And now in the comments, call your psychiatrist. Ask for emergency meds, and ask for an appointment as soon as possible. Use your phone to record any sounds that you hear. I'm really sorry. I know this is hard. I have a family member who has struggled with this for 40 years. Reach out to your doctor. This, recording the whispers, is the best way to know if it is your sister-in-law or not. No offense, but I don't think sister-in-law is good for your health either way. I would ask her to leave and live with her mom and dad. Yeah, whether it's her messing with you or not, the stress of the situation could be making your symptoms change or become worse. The added stress and changes in your routine are not good for your mental well-being, whatever the case may be. Sit down with your wife and lay all of this out. Don't accuse Sue of anything, but tell her you were genuinely concerned that this only happens when your wife isn't home. Tell her that you would feel better asking Sue to stay somewhere else for the time being. From there, keep an eye on what you're feeling. If after Sue is gone, things get better, then you know that something was up. If it doesn't get better, then you know that it wasn't her. Either way, have your wife suggest to Sue for her to stay away for a few days somewhere else. Make sure she doesn't say it's because of your mental health, because it sounds like Sue is already scared enough as it is. Another good idea would be to pull out your phone when you hear the voices. Record your phone and send the video to your wife or a friend. Ask them if they hear anything in the video that's out of ordinary. Another person can confirm or deny what you are hearing. For now, stay calm and avoid confronting Sue directly. It sounds like she's nervous already, and any more confrontation could cause her to call her parents again as an SOS, painting you in a negative light. And OP replies, I plan to show her this post when she comes back, so hopefully we can come up with a solution. And now on to the update. First things first, I was able to get my medication in about 2 days, so I wasn't without my antipsychotics for too long, thankfully. When my wife got home, we had a talk about what has been happening. I talked to her about Sue when I was alone with her, and even let her read over my previous post. My wife is a rock star, and she took everything I said well. We acknowledged the fact that it could still be hallucinations because we didn't have proof, but my wife had her suspicions of Sue and told me that it's not outside the realm of something Sue would do. My wife told me that Sue had talked to her earlier in the week and told her that I had not been taking my pills. My wife was confused by this because I tend to take my pills in front of my wife. I had a hard time with taking pills when I was first diagnosed and still having delusions. She had assured Sue that I had been taking my pills and thought that it was Sue just being extra paranoid. We went and searched for the pills one last time, but they were gone. We decided to not have Sue back over anymore. My wife didn't like the idea of her sister and nephew homeless, but she took to heart about what was said on the post and decided that it was for the best with everyone involved. I had been making good progress for a while, and she didn't want it to go away with Sue around. Of course, when she called up her family to tell them, they were pissed. Her parents screamed at her for choosing her husband over family, and later her sister called her up crying about how they were going to be homeless soon because the parents weren't going to let her stay there for too much longer. It hurt seeing my wife being caught up in this, and I'm not gonna lie, I almost relented about Sue staying with us, but my wife assured me that this was the right decision. So everything was quiet for a few days. I didn't have any of the new audio hallucinations with Sue around. Let me tell you, it was a relief. I can't say that I was totally fine, as some of my old delusions were making a comeback, mostly spirits and hauntings, but I felt more relaxed at home and was feeling good with her gone. I took the time to call up my doctor, and we had an emergency appointment, which made me feel better moving forward. So then this happened about 3 days ago. My wife's family waited for my wife to go off to work and came over to our place. The first thing I noticed was they actually brought a moving van. I don't know if their plan was to move me out or move more of Sue's junk in, but they were there, moving van right in front of my yard. I texted my wife to let her know what was going on and then answered the door. I did not let them in. So basically, the dad comes up to me all aggressively and tells me that, as a family, they decided that I was too unstable to live at home anymore and to pack up my crap, we're having you committed. I told them straight up that crap wasn't happening and I wasn't going to go anywhere with them. The mum went on a rant about how I was so unstable and they weren't going to leave their nephew with someone so dangerous. I told them that Sue wasn't staying here, so there's nothing to worry about. The mum tried to switch it up and sweet-talk me then, saying that with my mental health on the decline, they were just so worried about me and were going to take me to the hospital for my own good, and even said afterwards that I could live with my family until the nephew gets a little older. Not even after I get better, until the nephew gets older. I told them again, this is my house. I was not going anywhere. Sue was never staying over again, and they needed to leave my house before I called the police. They laughed, which just pissed me the hell off. And yes, honestly, I should have called the cops, but between having schizoaffective disorder and me being a black man in an argument against an old white couple, I didn't like those odds of me ending up being the one getting arrested. I did text my wife that her family was trying to have me go to inpatient care, which made her leave work right away. So to shorten this up, we had a screaming match, and it basically boiled down to this. If I didn't agree to move out for the safety of Sue and her kid, they would call up my landlord and let them know about my serious condition and what type of dangerous person was living at the house. They also implied that they were ready to have me involuntarily committed, with all the other crazies, if I fought them on this anymore, and it was better to go with them now, so that I would be taken into one of the good places. Backstory here. When I got diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder, my brother let me move into the house that I currently stay at today. We pay rent, but rent at a good rate because he wanted to make sure that I had a good place to stay. We've told her parents this before, multiple times even, but I guess they forgot this one little detail. So I told them straight up, my brother is my landlord. If I go, Sue still wouldn't live here. Ever. If I go to inpatient, she isn't going to live here. This situation will never end with her living at this house. That shut them up. Dead silent. They looked at me like I had just killed their dog. They tried to say a few more things, but about at that point, it kind of just fizzled out anticlimactically. Sue and her parents left afterwards. My wife came home not too long after her family left, and she was pissed. Like, my wife is a 5'4" tiny woman, but boy was she mad as hell about what happened, especially going behind her back to do this. Cue more calls, more fighting with her family. She stood by me. She told them to stay the hell away from me, and I greatly appreciate that. I just know that it's killing her on the inside about not being able to see her nephew anymore. Before this happened, her family was supportive of her and very close, so it just blows my mind that the situation turned into this. She's going no contact with them for now. So that's where I'm at right now. Not doing the best mental-wise, to be honest. Might end up inpatient care anyway, the way that things are going. I keep getting paranoid that they are going to take me away somehow, but I'm still trying to remain calm with everything. Like I said, none of those new hallucinations when Sue was around, but with the stress of everything, I feel like I'm constantly surrounded, and I'm going to be taken away at any moment. I've talked to my doctor again, and we have a plan in place, but I really don't want to end up in inpatient if I can avoid it. It makes it worse knowing that my wife will be left alone without support, which makes me the most pissed off about this entire situation. Thanks for all the advice, Reddit. It really helped me out in the end. And now in the comments, it's almost funny how they're crying to your wife about not letting her sister stay, but they won't even let her stay with them. Also funny to insinuate you aren't family to your wife. If they come again, don't answer the door, especially if your wife isn't there. I can easily imagine them making up lies about you, so protect yourself by avoiding them. I'm sorry that you had to deal with such terrible people, but I am so glad your wife is standing by you. Best of luck in the future. Just focus on getting better and loving your wife. The really sad thing is that OP lives in the US, where his in-laws could sick the police on him by claiming that he is mentally unstable, which will result in a mandatory stay in a mental ward. And given that he's a black man, that whole process can get him into very serious trouble, especially if they claim that he is violent. No wonder OP's paranoia is ramping up. Goodness, they sound like a lot of work. Must have felt so disappointing to be treated that way. It does sound very much like Sue was manipulating the situation. You sound like you're in a good place. You have an amazing wife, kind brother, and good doctor. Time to take some care of yourself and put the family drama behind you. I hope your mental health catches up with the great things that you have in life, even if it takes a while. Be gentle with yourself. I guarantee you that this whole confrontation was driven by racism and ableism in a terrible union, an unholy matrimony with naked opportunism as the best man and narcissism as the maid of honor. I want to know why the parents can't look after their daughter and grandson. Maybe they just sent the sister in to sabotage the relationship, because I was also wondering why they couldn't do it themselves. Even if I was in a one-room studio, I'd let my kid and grandson move in instead of be homeless. And now onto update 2. Hey guys, sorry to those who I didn't get a chance to reply to on DMs. I figured I'd post an update on my profile for those who cared. Thank you for all the kind words and messages I received. It meant a lot to me. So for starters, my mental health has been okay. I'm still trying to find the right antipsychotic for me. It has been trial and error lately. I can have one that works pretty well, but end up raising my liver levels or sugar levels. All in all though, not too bad. Voices are still down to a murmur at best. Delusional states can be tough, but I still have my wife and other family for support. As for my wife's family, it's a mixed bag. My wife didn't talk to her parents for a while, but eventually she started talking to her parents again. I don't blame her. They're old, and age is starting to get to them. She gave me the option to keep no contact, but I wasn't going to do that to my wife. Don't get me wrong, contact is low, and still not back to what it was, but they aren't bothering me. From what my wife tells me, and what she can piece together from her parents, her sister Sue had been kind of pumping up her parents against me for a lot longer than I thought. From what they were hearing from Sue, they thought that I was a lot worse than they thought that I was. She had told the parents that I had really gone off the deep end, talking to myself and carrying a knife around the house, screaming at the top of my lungs, complaining that the government was after me. She even tried to say that I was aggressive towards her son, which none of this was true, obviously. It took a while for my wife's parents to trust that she was in fact okay and not in any danger from me, but they eventually started to believe her. I think it helped by the fact that Susan lost complete interest in me or in the situation once the idea of her living in the house was off the table. Don't get me wrong, I'm not forgiving them for the crap that they put me through. The fact is, if they had called the cops to get me that day, I could have been in serious trouble. I just can see why they suddenly went crazy on me if Sue was just feeding them stories upon stories of me going crazy and threatening her and her son. I don't like it, but I get it. My wife feels somewhat responsible for them, but the contact is still low, and they haven't seen each other physically since the altercation. She is sad about the situation. She never saw that side of her parents before, so it is hard for her. For her sake, as long as they stay the hell away from me, I do hope my wife and her parents can repair their relationship. Probably not what some wanted to hear about her still having contact, but my wife has given me a lot, and if they can have a relationship together again, I'm not going to stand in the way unless it's necessary. As for Sue, my wife is hardcore no contact with her, and that relationship is probably good and well dead. We only know from her parents that Sue is still living at their home, and that she might be getting back together with her ex. All I can say is, good luck to that dude. Some good news for us though is that I was finally approved for disability. I got really lucky, like really lucky, because sometimes you have to wait years waiting on getting approved, and half the time they have to go to the court to prove your case. But it only took a year for us, and now I can contribute some income so my wife doesn't have to work as hard anymore at work. I got back pay from my approval, so along with paying off a few of the heavier bills that we had, I also bought my wife a new camera. She has sold her old one when I had previously lost my job to pay for bills. So it was one of the first things that I bought her with the money. So all in all, things are going good. I love you guys, but I'm hoping this is the last update that I have to make on this situation. Thanks again for all of the support that you guys gave me. And now in the comments, Sue is such a horrible person. I hope for some sweet, sweet karma her way. She has to wake up as herself every day. I'd say that's karma enough. Oh, I would bet she thinks her crap doesn't stink and believes that she's the GOAT and would be living her best life if it wasn't for all these other people ruining it for her. This makes me feel sorry for her child. That poor kid is probably going to be posting on r/raised by narcissists in so many years. With time moving on and Reddit becoming more popular, I wonder if we will ever see cross-generational Reddit drama. Like imagine Sue's kid finds this years later and makes the post, "My mom always told me my uncle was a psycho, but I found a post that proves that my mom is the psycho." I have bipolar type 2 with severe anxiety. It's surprisingly well managed now with some lifestyle changes and CBT. And no, that doesn't mean cock and ball torture. Now, the hard part to explain is that severe anxiety can cause auditory hallucinations, but it's not like a voice telling you to do things. It's more like I'm hearing some intense music in my head, or someone whispering just outside of the range I could understand it. It never makes sense, and is really just a signal to me that I'm anxious now. The problem is, when people have found out that I have hallucinations, they all immediately assume I'm psychotic, when the hospital literally deemed me non-psychotic and agreed with my family that I have a firm grip on reality. That's never been a problem for me. But dear God, the people that find out like to try and F with me. But the problem is they can't really recreate what my hallucinations sound like. Specifically, if I am walking around, my hallucinations don't really change sound levels. So it's pretty damn easy to figure out, and my favorite go-to is to just subtly turn on my phone to record the person effing with me. Now, I know you don't mean cock and ball torture, but I can't read that as anything but that. Yeah, I'm talking about cognitive behavioral therapy, but I'm always up for a good time. Honestly, Sue can rot. She is a nasty piece of work, and I hope the wife sticks to no contact with her, because OP should never have to be exposed to that woman again. I honestly don't think the parents deserve any sympathy either, because their actions were also terrible. Trying to have OP removed from his own home? F that. They didn't give a damn about OP, only about their precious Sue. If they thought he was a danger, why the hell didn't the parents reach out to OP's wife? It's obvious they are full of excuses and backpedaling. I hope OP gets his meds sorted and just gets to live his life without this drama. Are we just going to ignore the very high possibility that Sue stole his meds? Pretty sure that's very illegal, and if they had found them in Sue's possession, would have cleared OP almost instantly. I hope the parents kick Sue out and never let her move back in. The nephew/grandkids, sure, but Sue, never. The parents are idiots for letting that sociopath stay with them. I can't help but imagine her trying to get their house by kicking them into a care facility. Am I the asshole for being unable to live in a party environment? I, 28 female, live with my boyfriend, 27 male. I moved in with him about 8 months ago. I have disabilities and sensory issues. This is important. In general, he is respectful of the accommodations that I need. My boyfriend is a professional sculptor and has his studio in our house. It's in a place that I have to walk through to get to the bathroom and yard, and there's not another good place in the house for it. The problem is that I'm constantly affected by the way my boyfriend acts while he's working. He listens to music while he works on his headphones and is always rocking out with his body motions, mouthing the song lyrics, etc. He says that it helps him work, and I understand this. The main conflict is the constant dancing and mouthing lyrics, which he says shouldn't matter because it's silent. I tried to explain to him that with my sensory issues, that's just the same as if I can hear the music. He said that I could just enter that part of the house less while he's working. I mean, what? The bathroom is there. There were also problems with him bringing buyers over to see his work, and we have policies around this. I need to be notified in advance and agree, which get broken. I've come home and there is a buyer in the house, and he thought that it was fine because he didn't expect me home. Having a stranger in the house is very unsafe for me. I might be affected for days. He again suggested that I should just avoid his studio in that case, despite this being my home now too. I was having an extremely bad day yesterday. Week, really, and I just needed restorative peace in my own house, so I hid the key to his studio. I told him that I would give it back in an hour and just needed total rest for now, and said to him, like he said to me so many times, that maybe he should spend the time in another part of the house. I really would have given the key back in an hour or so, but he freaked out and bluffed that I was going to make him lose a commission if he couldn't work right then, which gave me an anxiety attack. This is where I might be the asshole, and I didn't return the keys until that night. He thinks that I'm the asshole, but I think for the most part, I just wanted a little peace in my own home. Am I the asshole? I do understand where you're coming from with this issue, and in all honesty, it doesn't feel like there is a solution to this one. It seems like one person gives more than they have to or they should, and they suffer, or the other one does that, and they suffer. Though I'm gonna have to side with your partner in this one, and I think that you were an asshole for taking the key away from him and making him lose a commission. But the flip side to that is that he accepts that, he loses the commission, and then a precedent is set in which you can just take the keys to his office away anytime, and he can continually lose commissions. I don't think that's fair to him. It just feels like this situation isn't working out for the both of you. I'm still in his camp. I'm gonna go with you're the asshole for this one. And now in the comments, stop this childish behavior. It's his house. Why would you even want to be with someone you think is disrespectful to you? This is a very bad situation and very unacceptable and extremely unhealthy. You need to chill and get into therapy now. You are not a good choice for your boyfriend. He deserves a woman who doesn't have all these hang-ups. And you never once mentioned love. Set him free. What's sad is that one day, when your boyfriend puts you out, like your sister did, you will probably go and cry to the next guy and tell him that no one cares about you and your disability and that everyone is an asshole. He would then believe you, take you in, and within a year, you'll end up in the same situation again as the cycle repeats, never admitting to yourself or anyone else that you've probably made up your undiagnosed disability and that you're using it as an excuse to not work and act as an entitled brat. You're the asshole. I truly do hope your boyfriend realizes you are being extremely manipulative and abusive and throws you out. You contribute nothing. The world doesn't revolve around you. You're the asshole. When you said party atmosphere, I assumed he was having actual parties, not dancing along to music on his headphones while he works. Your requested accommodations are not reasonable, and your theft of his studio key is controlling in a way that veers on abusive. You either need to get it together and learn to coexist with his work, or you need to move out of his home. And now on to the update. I accept that I'm the asshole for hiding the keys to my boyfriend's studio. It was an asshole moment. I was the asshole. My boyfriend and I have now discussed several solutions to the problem I posted about, and none of them involve me hiding his keys. I will address the other main comments. I asked my boyfriend if I am abusive. He said no, so there's that. To all of the disabled people who commented about work, I'm truly sorry that you have to work while suffering through your pain and that it's made you lack compassion for others. To all of the non-disabled people who commented about work and social services, do any of you have any idea how hard it is to get a disability medically recognized in this country, let alone by the government? Why is it assumed that I never tried this option? Do you know what the government offered me? Not resources, not support, not even the financial resources to get all of the medical consultations which I would need to be diagnosed and meet their criteria. They offered me skills, training and jobs that nobody would ever want. It's a broken system. There is no help to be had. To random house layout questions, I didn't design this house. The bathroom is where it is, the doors are where they are. And to the statements that it's not a disability, it is. Sensory disabilities make some people able to perceive very minor sounds and vibrations that other people could not. As a continuation, OP writes another Am I the Arsehole? Am I the arsehole for needing my home to be safe? I'm 27 female, my boyfriend is 28 male. I moved in with him last year after my sister, who I was living with before, tried to push me into moving out suddenly. I am disabled, have sensory issues, and cannot work, so moving in with my boyfriend was necessary. I also don't do well living alone due to my disabilities. I tried to explain this before, but I think I left out too much information to make sense. The central conflict is that my boyfriend's sculpture studio room is in a part of the house that I need to cross through to access the bathroom and yard, and he constantly dances around in the room while also bringing clients and buyers into the house. All of this makes me feel unsafe. It might be hard to understand for people without sensory issues, but him dancing around in the room is physically exhausting to me, and I can sense him doing this even if I'm not in the room. The presence of strangers in the house is also very unsafe and can cause me literal days of anxiety. My boyfriend and I have had many discussions about the accommodations I need, and it seems like I am simply not getting through to him on these issues, although he is considerate of my needs in some other areas regarding living together. Lately we had an argument where I hid his studio keys as a result of being simply exhausted and needing to be able to rest in the house, which is my home too. I recognize hiding his keys was excessive, but my point is that I can't think well or make proper decisions in an environment where I don't feel safe and sane. Am I the asshole for needing to have my boundaries respected in my house? Now in the comments, you're the asshole. If your definition of reasonable accommodations is no visitors ever, let alone, you don't get to move your body in ways that make me uncomfortable despite me not even being present to observe, regardless of whatever discomfort that might cause you, then living with someone else is probably not a good idea, period. When their home is also their workspace and their job requires regular client contact, and you moved in knowing that this was the case, I don't know how you ever convinced yourself this would be feasible, but the burden is entirely on you to admit that you were wrong and find somewhere else to go, instead of expecting him to completely rearrange his personal and professional life around some frankly pretty extreme requirements on your part. And I don't know where you got the idea that any explanation would make hiding his keys so he literally cannot work excusable, so please don't try and justify that. And OP replies, I know that would sound completely unreasonable in a normal situation, but hear me out. My sensory issues cause me to be hypervigilant of small, seemingly innocuous sounds, motions, and other things happening around me. It's not even a matter of being uncomfortable, it's the equivalent of having my mind and senses scrambled to where I cannot properly think or process information. If I were to move out, I would be forced into homelessness. I do not have anyone else to stay with, which would obviously be worse for me, given everything. My boyfriend and I have promised to support each other through hard times, so I feel like I'm calling that in, but it's too much after the fact. This is literally abuse by you. There is such a thing as caretaker's abuse. People who feel they must protect and help someone who then takes it for granted. You are treating his home as your property, taking away his ability to work effectively, and in at least one case, causing him actual financial harm by forcing him to not use his own space. He probably feels powerless because he can't remove you due to the extremity of your failure to be able to deal with the world. What exactly are you bringing into this relationship? Adding on to the pile of you're the asshole, but this really cannot be emphasized enough. If you keep this up, he will kick you out eventually, just like your sister did. It's at the point now where you're impinging on his livelihood and do not contribute anything to the household yourself. I get that you don't choose to have the issues you have, but for purely pragmatic reasons, you need to get a handle on them or you will be looking for another place to live again. And OP replies, I contribute emotionally to the relationship and household. My values don't reduce a person to their financial contributions, and so I thought, my boyfriends don't either. How are you emotionally contributing in a positive way when he can't even dance or work in or access his own house without you saying that it sucks the life out of you? Honestly, you're verging on the point of emotional and financial abuse. And if you thought that it was over, we actually have a response from the boyfriend. Am I the asshole for telling my dependent girlfriend that she is doomed? Myself and my girlfriend are both in our late 20s. She moved in with me last year and is multiply disabled. Her move coincided with financial need on her part, and I was able to support her, and I thought that I was prepared to accommodate her other needs. I've sometimes needed to depend on others, or some friends have carried me. This made me committed to trying to make it work. It turns out that I fell short many times. A lot of tension grew around her sensory disorders, which made her vulnerable to upset from routine household things. I changed my lifestyle, with new furnishings, minimizing sounds and smells, confining my work to one area of the house, restricting visitors and hobbies. Each time, a new issue popped up. Finally, she was agitated by my presence in the house at all, and I began to feel unwelcome, yet she also required me to help her, emotionally and materially. My work suffered, resentment grew. I gently pressed her to reach out to others for help, which met with resistance as she saw my suggestions as callousness. The rift widened, she became verbally hostile and more withdrawn. My mental health has its own quirks, so this made an impact on me. I've been struggling with guilt and depression. I reached a tipping point after missing work deadlines because it was easier to avoid the house than complete my work at home. I've worked hard to craft a career that brings me fulfillment, and I saw it collapsing. I went home, entered her room, and told her that I can't continue. She lashed out about the ways in which she can't live alone. I opened my mouth, and the words that came out are, well, it looks like you're doomed. I went on. If she can't live on her own, can't cope with others, and can't seek out other help, she's doomed, and that's that. I stopped short. The look on her face was of total horror and betrayal. It will haunt me. When I said it, I feel like I'd been walking on eggshells for months and that she needed to hear reality. Now I'm racked with regret and confusion. I've been staying in a hotel waiting to work out the logistics of living separately. She has refused to speak to me beyond texting that I've caused deep trauma with my statement. I need to know if I actually crossed that line. Please note, I'm not seeking advice on the relationship in general, which is over, but to morally weigh this utterance of mine. The relationship had already caused tensions with friends, and none of them are neutral enough to judge this. An acquaintance suggested I try here. Please give it to me straight. I don't know what to say. You were walking on eggshells for months, and I do think that she needed to hear reality. The flip side that I want to point out here is that she has this huge impact on you, and yet you're never allowed to express your emotions on this situation and how it's affecting you. Like, you're depressed from this, you're anxious, you're resentful in this situation, yet you have to bottle it up all the time. How is it fair that you protect her this entire time and yet she can't see your guilt and depression and she can't hear you out in this situation either? If she is so emotionally accommodating, why did you have to hide your emotions from her so much? That doesn't make any sense to me. I'm on your side on this one, boyfriend. I'm gonna go not the asshole, absolutely on your part. Now in the comments, this is one of those rare breaking points I see here, which makes me say not the asshole. You bent over backwards and she still broke your back. I want to add that her look of horror probably had more to do with realizing that she can't abuse OP anymore than it does with anything else. He called her on her crap, and now she doesn't have a victim. Edit. Maybe she's realized she's no longer in control of you, would be a better way to word it. Either way, I maintain that OP sticking up for himself and no longer being under her thumb was the shock, not necessarily the words that OP said. Harsh as they were, justified wholly in my opinion. Not the asshole, I think. If you take out the part about her being disabled and consider how she has gotten you to be her source of support while also making you restrict who you see, give up your own hobbies, close off your career prospects, walk on eggshells around her, dude, that's a textbook abusive relationship. What you said is just you reacting to a really screwed up situation. Yes, I know it sounds really weird to be like, my disabled girlfriend is abusing me, but you can abuse someone without ever raising a hand to them. All abusive relationships have a manipulative, emotional component. They do not necessarily have a physical one. Getting out of the house and staying in a hotel was probably actually a good idea, but you need to make this separation more permanent. You're probably going to worry about who will take care of your disabled ex-girlfriend, and I'm sure she will bring it up too. But you really need to take care of your mental and physical health, and God knows she is not going to let you do that. Please take care of yourself and get out. Not only this, but it sounds like she's using her disability as a weapon in the abuse. OP is most definitely not the asshole. I've been abused by a disabled partner. I feel like it can be more common than people think. I'm sorry to hear that. I hope you're doing better now. Thanks, I'm doing a lot better. I've been in therapy for over a year and have worked through a lot of the trauma and am coming up on my 1-year anniversary with a brilliant, amazing, kind, loving partner. My life has changed so much that it's starting to get kinda hard to believe that was even my life. A bit off topic, but why are you in a hotel? If the woman is not reasonable to live with, the house is yours, the relationship is over, and you're not married nor in common law partnership, then it's time for you to send her out of your house. That would be because he is a good person, giving her a little bit of dignity to prepare to leave by a certain date. And that's great, for a very limited amount of time. This woman does not sound the least bit reasonable. My guess is that he's going to have her evicted. Hopefully I'm wrong. Quote, if she can't live on her own, can't cope with others, and can't seek out other help, she is doomed, and that's that. I mean, you weren't wrong. I'm sure she's extremely upset, but maybe she needed to hear it in such stark terms, because she'll need to change something. Not the asshole. Yup, this is the, unfortunately common, impossible problem phenomenon. OP is given the responsibility for fixing something, but all of the possible ways to fix it are declared impossible, but he's still expected to fix it. She probably genuinely believes each individual thing she is saying she needs, but her needs are contradictory. She either has to live with people or not with people. Those are literally the only two options. The only way to deal with the impossible problem is to point it out, and it's never going to be welcomed, because no one wants to hear that they have created the impossible problem. OP, imagine this situation. She's standing on the train tracks. The train is coming. Get out of the way, you cry. I can't walk, she replies. Well then, I'll carry you off, you say. No, you can't touch me, she responds. Well then, I guess you're going to get hit by a train, you tell her. Blunt? Yes. Cruel? No. Because getting hit by the train is literally the only option she has given herself. She is only going to be able to get out of the way of the train when she accepts the reality of the situation. Our next post is titled, Am I the asshole for being mad my boyfriend won't make noodles the way that I like? Okay, this sounds dumb, but hear me out. I have always been a picky eater, especially when it comes to tomatoes. Ever since I was a kid, my dad would make my spaghetti different from the rest of the house. I like having an essence of the sauce flavor on the noodles, but not the overpowering flavor having noodles bathed in sauce creates. So here is where it gets a bit odd. My dad would separate my spaghetti from the family's after putting the sauce on, and then would rinse the sauce off with the sink and strainer. I love noodles like this, as it's a nice subtle tomato vibe given to the mild spaghetti. My 20 boyfriend, 26, has known about this since we first started dating. He always told me my food habits were cute. We have been dating for almost 3 years now and moved in together at the beginning of the pandemic so that we could be in lockdown together. Ever since we moved in together, he insisted on taking charge of cooking and all cooking-related tasks, dishes, grocery shopping, etc., and he assigned me the role of cleaning the bulk of the apartment. We split other tasks pretty much 50-50 too. Everything was perfect, and he always seemed to be making noodles the way that I liked them when we had them. This was until last week when we last had spaghetti. We ate and everything was good, but afterwards he started teasing me, saying things like, "You really like your pasta with an essence of tomato," and "How is your tomato essence, babe?" Always using finger quotes around the word essence. After a few comments, I felt something was off and asked him if he had done anything differently with tonight's noodles than he usually does, and he started laughing. When he finally stopped laughing, he told me the whole truth while smirking. He said, "I didn't do anything different than I usually do. I have never been making it to the way you have requested." Apparently, the entire time we've been living together, he's just been skipping the pasta sauce on my noodles entirely. He claimed that if I didn't notice for this long, then it shouldn't matter that he's making dinner in a way that is easier for him. I disagree entirely. I think the lying was a huge breach of trust, and so was the refusal to make dinner how I wanted. I have, admittedly, been acting passive-aggressively to him since, but he thinks that he did nothing wrong, that I'm overreacting, and that I need to let it go. Am I the asshole? And now in the comments, everyone sucks here. You both sound dreadful, to be honest. The idea that putting pasta sauce on noodles and then rinsing it off would leave an essence of tomato flavor is objectively ridiculous, and more importantly, a really shockingly disgusting waste of pasta sauce. What your dad did was basically teach you to waste food whilst planting the idea in your head that you were tasting something that was all in your imagination. You can be pissed off at your boyfriend, but the fact that you didn't notice the difference in all this time is indisputable evidence that he was right. You weren't tasting any essence of anything to begin with. It was a placebo effect. You feel betrayed, but honestly, you should be more embarrassed that you are asking someone to consistently waste sauce by putting it on your noodles and then literally washing it off again. First of all, there is no rational way that you could have tasted it after that. Secondly, people, myself included, literally struggle to make sure that they can afford to put food on their plate at all, and you're bloody well pouring it out the jar and then washing it down the sink on purpose. Be embarrassed. Your boyfriend is an asshole, not for refusing to waste pasta sauce on you, and honestly, good for him, but for being a dick about it and mocking you. He sounds like a really nasty human being, and I can't speak for you, but I wouldn't date someone who spoke to me that way. He should have just pointed out the complete wastefulness of what you wanted from the outset. Though I suspect that you wouldn't have listened, honestly, if you actually believe that washed pasta noodles still retain an essence of sauce. I'm going to guess that you believe in homeopathy as well. Everyone sucks here, and y'all deserve each other. What are the odds that Dad's essence of tomato sauce was also in fact plain pasta? Near 100% I'd wager. As a dad who cooks for picky eaters every single day, 100% guaranteed that it was just plain pasta. When my sister was small, we were out for a family dinner. There was vegetable soup on the menu, but my sister didn't like vegetable soup. We told the waitress to tell her that it was chicken soup, and after eating her vegetable soup, she said that it was the best chicken soup she had ever eaten. This is the most whiny 5-year-old toddler post I have ever seen. You're the asshole. Grow up. If you didn't notice a difference until he pointed it out, then your preference for the essence of sauce is BS. Just make them yourself. I back your boyfriend 100%. Like, where is the problem here? If you never noticed, then why does he need to go through any extra effort to rinse your noodles? Also, why don't you just rinse your own noodles? It's your food and your preference. I think you're just pissy because you're feeling dumb that you didn't notice he wasn't putting sauce on them at all. If you never had a problem with it all this time, then why does it matter, and why should he put in any extra effort? You're the asshole for making a big deal out of nothing. And now onto the update, edit. My boyfriend found the post and is not happy. I'm debating pouring the sauce directly down the drain to spite him. Edit 2. So a lot has happened since this morning. Y'all may be happy to hear that we broke up. We had a huge blow-up fight since he found the post, which led to me breaking up with him. He did not like being called a predator, and I started to think that y'all had a point about that, so I ended up breaking up with him. He attempted to plead with me a bit. My parents pay our rent, so he can't afford the place without me, but I wouldn't budge. Now some things I found out in the argument. First, he is not a pharmacist like he always told me. He just works at CVS. Second, he has actually cheated on me multiple times with other girls that go to my college. And lastly, and worst of all, he has never actually been allergic to dogs and just doesn't like them. And now in the comments, she still doesn't realize that she likes plain noodles. The fact that she didn't acknowledge it in the update actually makes me think she might have started to realize how embarrassing it was and just doesn't want to draw any more attention to it. That dressing down she got from the comments was pretty brutal. I hope she comes around to just eating plain noodles, but either way, I would understand forgetting about the whole sauce thing once cheating and lying about his job and pet allergies joined the party. I wonder if she just made all of that up herself to look better. She clearly didn't like that most of the comments weren't entirely on her side. Of course, the guy she lived with would suddenly never contribute to the finances, lie about his job, and cheat on her. I could definitely see her adding all the updates to prove that she was right all along. I mean, it starts with, he lied about not rinsing the sauce off my pasta, and ended one day later with, he's a predator who lied about his job, was cheating on me, was financially dependent on me for an apartment, and didn't like dogs, so I'm clearly not the asshole. It's a little bit of an oversell in my honest opinion. Whenever an update happens with crap like that, I get suspicious. In reality, they were probably mad they got called out and the shitstorm that followed. So they throw a laundry list of shitty things in order to deflect the blame. 100%. Whenever OP gets pushback in their post, and then in their update, they reveal a bunch of unrelated reasons that the other person is the asshole that I never believe a single thing they say. They just can't handle the embarrassment of not being in the right, so they make crap up to make them right. What did I just read? This almost reminds me of the post the other day with the girl who couldn't handle her boyfriend listening to music and dancing quietly in the other room. Both of these individuals are ridiculously pedantic and possibly obsessive-compulsive. The music girl was more infuriating. Her ex was doing everything he could to try and not trigger her, and she still called him an ass and refuses to get help. At least with this one, they are both shitty people. Man, reading that, I want to date the sculptor. I don't have any major disabilities, but the distance he went for her, and how caring and upbeat he seems to be, is really winning me over. I'm not even that gay. Sad to hear him so broken up about telling her the truth as well. He is the end of her rope. And pretty incredible that she managed to find someone like him, and she has taken this to mean that he is the final stop on her journey down, rather than the last thing stopping her from plummeting. She's making even more demands of him than she has of others, who already kicked her out, and she's refusing to do anything to strengthen her position. Even if you removed everything to do with her disability, including the allowances, she sounds like she is entirely dependent on the sculptor in the most unhealthy way possible. And that is where I'm going to end the episode today, guys. I do hope you enjoyed. As always, let me know what you thought of it down below, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.